Welcome, everybody. Conspiracy or not, here we come.
How's it going?
Hey.
How you doing today, guys? I'm here again. We're here again with our lovely guest, Amy, and we have our special guest in-house today, Howard Crane, and he's from Ireland. How you doing, Amy?
I'm hanging in here.
Good here. How you doing over there on the island, Howard?
Good now that the rain has stopped.
Yeah, well, we just finally got rain here, so that's a good thing. I'm in BC, Canada, and we've just been the whole half the province is on fire still. So
Ooh.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Just to let everybody know, our main guest, Aaron, he's actually on an exciting road trip. He's heading nearly across the country into the Midwestern states. He's going to Devil's Tower, Wyoming. So he's going to be on the road for the next 3 or 4 weeks, and hopefully he'll be able to join us here and there, possibly next week. And maybe when he's at Devil's Tower, we can have him live on scene with his input on what's going on there. So.
Yeah, with the tower in the background and the whole 9 yards.
Huh.
Yeah, so we'll all miss him, but he'll be back soon, and I hope he has a nice, safe trip, and hopefully he's listening tonight. So how's things, Amy? How's your week?
Well, it was pretty much same old.
Yeah, nothing exciting going on in your world?
Nah.
Well, that's good.
Anyway, shall we move on to Howard and find out what he's all about?
So welcome, Howard. And
thank you.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, what basically woke you up to the powers that be, and anything else you want to talk about at the time. I'll give the floor to you.
I guess my story of waking up is a really good example of how, one great example of how a wide variety of people are coming to these conclusions for a wide variety of reasons. As a teenager, I had my heart set on Jungian psychology. I was going to be a psychologist. And I did have interest in, say, magical affairs. I owned a deck of tarot, and, I read, if anyone's ever read the Celestine Prophecies. That's an interesting book. Hang on a second. Sorry, I had to just I just had to deal with something in the house. It, may come up again.
So I guess you got somebody there moving stuff around tonight, so you'll probably be.
Yeah, it's a real mismatch of schedules. That's the deal with living with other people. In this life, one would like to actually have a house of their own, but it's not possible in this economic climate.
I understand that far too well.
Yeah, we do what we can. We get by. But yeah, I was just into psychology, and I was, I had like peeks, little peeks behind the curtain that life isn't really what we're brought up to think it is. I would have like flashes of like moments, days, or just hours of synchronicities. If I don't know how familiar your audience will be with the word synchronicity.
Probably most of the people are fully aware of what that entails.
Okay,
Why don't you go
cool.
ahead and break it down for them?
Well, it was originally coined by Carl Jung, the idea that someone's inner climate, inner thought process could be reflected in the outer world. Strange events from that person's subjective perspective. You run into someone you just thought of, it could be more ESP than synchronicity, or a good example of this is something called the Baader Meinhof phenomenon, where you first hear of a word and you could swear that you've never heard this word being used in your entire life. This is a completely new word for you. But in the week following, you hear it maybe 10 more times. So synchronicity calls out to you to notice that your internal life is reflected in the outer world, that there's some kind of a relationship there. And I would have these moments myself. All throughout my teen years, would kind of wonder why it disappeared. So 9/11 happened, and I didn't pay too much mind to that. I was too busy growing up. I was only 15 at the time. I continued my self-study in psychology, and I had lost my tarot deck. And this sounds like a pretty small detail of one's life, but one day I sat down and I thought, I'm going to make my own tarot. I'm going to go through each of the cards and I'm going to make my own illustration of them. And within the major arcana, there's the Tower card, the lightning striking a medieval tower, and you can see men diving out of it. That is, when I got to that card, I had what I originally thought was a really mean-spirited idea. It was basically to depict the Twin Towers being struck by planes. And then I thought to myself, wait, hang on a minute. This isn't just a funny little association I made in my head. There's a real connection going on here. There are, as I learned the years after, as I opened up to alternative explanations for 9/11 and for the world around me, I realized, as a lot of people do, there are archetypal, magical purposes behind everything that the elites impose upon us or inflict upon us. 9/11 was the biggest example of that. It was, number one, the most traumatic event just outside of World War II. But in terms of it all happened in one day, the whole world was fixated upon it.
Yep.
And for me, that just sold me completely. We're living in a different world. I got lost, though. I got very, very much lost in the conspiracy theorist movement, if I would call it that way. I don't know what to call it. And I'm reluctant to actually use conspiracy theory as that was outed as a CIA invented term.
How about the conspiracy analyst movement?
That works.
Yes.
That really works, yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to use that from now on. Very well
Awesome.
caught.
Awesome. Glad to
Right.
hear it. My pleasure.
There, as with everything in our culture, we form religions around it. We form cults of personality around it, and we exclude others. We define each other. We make ourselves distinct in little groups. And, you can see that with the variety of explanations of what 9/11 was about and who's behind the New World Order, which is all great. We need a variety of explanations, but it does tend to get to the point where we mock each other or just separate ourselves from each other completely because of these beliefs. And we don't serve ourselves with these little groups. I find that we become obsessive sometimes, and I was an obsessive, and my life went to shit personally. So I had to go back to asking myself what was the nature of reality. So the last few years for me has been a journey of realizing, as I knew from my teen years, that my internal life is reflected, or rather the external world is reflected from my internal life, whichever way you want to look at it. And I now coach or mentor people to see that within themselves. I host a radio program where I focus on, current events and what have you, but I always try to leave a positive spin on it, because I'm absolutely convinced that if we allow the elites to convince us of their reality, of their distorted view of the world, then they have us. It doesn't matter what we know about banking systems or the occult or anything like that. As long as we're living in fear, as long as we see a negative outcome as opposed to a positive outcome, we are boned.
Yeah, and that goes to show in the word government itself, right? Government means to govern your mind, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to creating our reality, I mean, the government does create our reality. Well, I can't say the government itself, but he who controls the government, right?
Yes.
Controls our reality.
Right? Yes. The corporation that
is
called a government by many. Yes.
Right. And speaking of segregating ourselves, I mean, we do it to ourselves when we call somebody else a sheep. Okay. Oh, the sheeple don't. The sheeple are so stupid, right? Well, they're not stupid. They're just uninformed. That's all. We were all in that position once, right, where we had no clue what was going on in the world, but it took something to break us out of that trance, right? And that's, people suffer from cognitive dissonance a lot, and it's a really hard thing to crack, right?
Yeah. If I may, to put that in context of why we shouldn't look down on these people, the elites who have this knowledge of mind control and reality control, they're aware of how the mind or the internal state creates reality, and they would even look upon us in the conspiracy analyst movement and say they're sheeple because they aren't up on our rung of the ladder.
Right. We may be a threat to them because we can figure it out, and they thought all along we would never figure it out.
I'm sure that they didn't expect quite the numbers. That's my guess.
Well, I think in a way they did, because they're actually building a police state around us for something big, right?
Yes.
Whether or not that's just an economic collapse they've got to deal with, or a great awakening occurring.
Yeah. Well, you can be guaranteed that at any point humanity will rise up and shake off their oppressors. Whether that's a fully informed rebellion or the real deal, there's going to be resistance against any form of oppression.
Tyranny, yeah. Well, it always has, right? We are always going in this secular pattern.
Well,
History always repeats itself, and all roads lead to Rome, right?
We always will, as long as we accept any authority and any accounting for our energy. You know, I'm going to say that if we can get free energy out there and remove the need to account for our energy with debt tokens or whatever other kind of tokens you want to mention, coins, bills, shells, beads, you know, we will break the cycle. It will no longer function. But we have to do that, and right now we're in a position where we can do that if we all work our butts off to do it. But of course, you know, people have got to know that they need to do that before they're going to do that, right?
Right.
Oh yeah. It's a attitude. It's a culture thing at the root, psychological thing rather.
Right. So yeah, continue on about the psychology of the mind and how they've basically created our reality that we know.
Well, one thing to remember is that we weren't put in this condition necessarily by them, but rather they saw this inherent weakness within us and then manipulated that. We are a species going through a growing pain. The consciousness itself, I'm sure a lot of people out there have heard before that it's rather new, as in only the last few thousand years, really. The people, say, of ancient Greece weren't conscious in the way that we are. They were partially in connection with a deeper, a connection to God, if you will.
Right.
And now we are drifting out of that further into individuality, so we are quite vulnerable. We don't quite understand individuality and how we need to temper ourselves, how we need to be responsible for ourselves. We understand that it's wrong to steal, it's wrong to hurt another, but when it comes to how to maintain our own psychology, how to relate to the world properly, we're sorely failing in that, but it's simply just a growing pain. The elites know that we're going through this growing pain, and they are actually prolonging this evolutionary process, or rather this hump in our evolutionary process. That's my take on it, and others have said just as much.
Well, we've talked about this topic before on our show, how basically we've had a number of guests. You know, we've discussed ancient artifacts. We've investigated old time technologies that have been taken and hidden away from. So I'm of the belief that we've been de-evolved from what we once were. If you go back and look at Atlantis, for example, right? They had, you know, technologies back then that we have now, right? But when you go back and through medieval times, even further back into Egypt, what have you, you know, the people weren't allowed to use those technologies for some reason. So I believe that something happened in the past where all of our history was basically destroyed, and they wanted it that way. And certain people, it might call them Freemasons or what have you, they kept the knowledge to themselves, and that's basically the psychopaths in control, right?
Yes.
Whether they're Jesuit, Freemason, whatever, right?
Whatever other label you use, by their behavior, they're psychopaths.
Right.
Yeah, that's the best way to call them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I mean, at the root of all this, you know, there is a very strong power that rhymes with bluish. Okay.
Yep.
And you know, they've had their influence on the world for quite a long time, right? But it's just that, you know, that's kind of where this whole thing sort of started to begin with, isn't it? It went from Egypt into Eastern Europe and the Middle East, and then moved its way outwards from that point, right?
Yep. They just knew how to
So
play the game much better than
Yes.
most people at this particular time. Yeah.
And it's not that it's all the people who rhyme with bluish.
No, of course not.
They're psychopaths who wound up on top.
right. And if you are familiar with the Bible, it does say in there that they're not the real Jews, they're the fake Jews, right? They're the ones that call themselves Jews, but they're not, right? Basically,
Yeah.
Zionist Freemasons is what they would, you know, that's probably the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, on the subject of ancient technology and ancient highly evolved societies, I don't recall where I read this, so I couldn't throw it up on the screen right now, but there is a 1.5 million old skeleton, a human skeleton found that really throws the whole idea of where we came from and how long we've been around up in the air. And a lot of people suggest that this cycle has happened quite a few times, where we come to this peak and then we are somehow taken down off of that pedestal.
Right. It's a reset.
Yeah.
And I would argue that this happens frequently, not just epochally. Like 9/11 was such an event. It also happens every day in the news. If you look in the news, you know, you're being de-evolved as you look at that.
That's right.
Well, one thing that there are people out there that are saying that something happened as more recently as 200 years ago, and that most of the history that we have prior to that has either been deleted, changed, added to, moved on the timeline, just you know, and of course, who was it that do you suppose that decided to do that? Probably the psychopaths in control.
Well, it'd be the same bloodline that goes all the way back, right? They want to keep control for themselves. It's just like Game of Thrones. If anyone watches that, do you watch that? I mean, they pretty much show how it works.
Oh yeah, I've personally watched it up until a few seasons, and I got a good idea of what it was until it turned into one of those kind of soap opera kind of shows. But absolutely, from all that I've absorbed myself in, I can definitely see that, you know, it's a very solid line of people down a long time that seem to see us as cattle.
Yeah,
something to be managed.
Oh yeah,
they've written and quoted on it.
Absolutely, that is exactly what they perceive us as, and our energy is theirs in essence, and they use the money to account for our energy, and you know, make us apply our energy as they want us to, because they will pay us for how they want us to add our energy into the system. And you know, if they don't want us doing something, we don't get paid and we can't live effectively.
Yeah. Well, like, you know, if you want to keep the cattle analogy, why just only milk the cows and slaughter them for meat when you can actually get them to work for their grain? You know, make them earn their own grain.
Exactly.
Which is against the golden rules anyways. We're supposed to bear the fruits of our labor. So
yeah,
taxation is theft.
Yep.
Because they're taking it at gunpoint, basically.
Well, and the funny thing is that at least where it comes to income tax, that's voluntary in this country.
Mhm.
They don't tell you that, and they behave as if it's not. But if you, I've heard a number of people say they have had great success in writing on their tax bill, I'll be happy to pay this if you prove I'm subject to it. And there is no proof, ergo, the IRS just drops it. Because they
I
can't.
find it hard to believe that now, to be fair. The IRS are pretty vicious.
Oh, but the thing is that you've offered them a deal. You've made them a counter offer to their offer to make you subject to paying taxes. You haven't refused. You've
Well,
made a counter offer, and when you make a counter offer, it's not a controversy. And they say, well, the conditions of getting them to be subject to this is to prove that they are subject, and we have no proof. Ergo, we've got to drop it.
They're basically just the collection agency for the Federal Reserve.
Yes. Yes, they are.
The henchmen, so to speak.
Yes, the henchmen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so back to
Yeah. Well,
now I forgot what I was going to ask you again. Keep going.
well, like maybe it would help to for me to give a bit of context. What we need to do is ask ourselves what it is as individuals we need to be doing in order to eventually, maybe a few generations down the road, be free of this system. We've identified that the system is terrible, and a lot of spiritual laws, for instance, will point out that it's not really correct for you to spend your time complaining at and trying to physically tackle those who do wrong to you. Your realm is yourself. You must deal with yourself, and I think that actually I'm pretty certain, even though I don't have, I haven't been to other planets where a civilization has freed itself from tyranny through positive thinking or a positive attitude, but I have seen people free themselves of mini tyrants, particularly the self-tyrant, the tyrant within, because I think that's the one that we most suffer from, is this all the voices that we've accumulated through life, convincing us that we simply aren't good enough, convincing us to take actions that harm ourselves and others. And if you think of what comprises of this world tyranny, it's a bunch of people doing shitty things to themselves and shitty things to other people. And you can have all of the psychopath CEOs and Rothschilds and all you want. You can have 1,000 of them, 1,000,000 of them, but their shit won't matter if we aren't going along with their program, and their program is abuse. It's denial of our true nature, denial of the nature of another person.
Yep.
Yep, it is. Yep.
So should we not be focused on improving our attitude to life itself, to ourselves?
Well, I agree that that is a very good start. I will say, though, that we have to decide what we're going to consent to. And if we do not consent to these crazy systems that promote psychopaths and keep them in power, we probably should have a better thing to consent to, right?
Yeah, I personally think that this stuff comes naturally to people. It's just that we feel so isolated. We Another aspect of our consciousness is that we go about our lives with these thoughts in our heads, and we think that we're so unique for having them. In terms of hardships and dreams of a better world, we rarely really actually talk about what it's like to be human, what the problems really are in life and the world system, and the better ways of being. These are just very, very seldom spoken about, and there's a reason for that. It's because we don't think it's important. We don't think we're worth that. And if we do individually evolve to manage our internal life, then we will just naturally, through the cosmic ordering of the universe, come into contact with others who are on that level. And that is when we can what it is we want to consent to. We can start a kind of a small example. Say smartphone technology and cigarette smoking. These are two things I struggle with. I was one of those people over the past 2 or 3 years that I had a smartphone for the first time. I checked it constantly. I'm not like a celebrity or anything, you know. I'm not a businessman that has to operate through the internet. No, I was just looking at my fucking phone. I've been smoking for 12 years now, and I've gotten up to 50 or 60 grams a week of rolling tobacco.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty heavy. But within 1 week of what I would call a little hurdle in my personal development, I managed to cut that down to 20 grams a week. I now only smoke 15 grams. Personally, I don't think it's something that I need to completely get rid of. But one thing that I've noticed is that through my personal development, I didn't have to go through those horror stories of people struggling with themselves, trying for years to quit smoking, and then when they finally do, they put on a ton of weight. I neither have had to go to some retreat in the middle of the woods without my electronic devices in order to learn to put away my phone. It just happened. And for me, in those very short few weeks of my if I might sound pretentious here, my awakening, I was able to withdraw my consent from the tobacco companies to a large degree, and withdraw my consent to Google with these terrible devices in my home, which I will soon be rid of. But here's the key that goes back to we and what we consent to. I'm largely alone in this world. I have friends, I have family, yeah, but they're all also hooked on their devices, and they have their vices as well. So there isn't that environment there of cooperation. Like, I'll be your friend, you be my friend, we'll hang out, not smoke cigarettes, and not use electronic devices. You know, that can be
Right.
that can be expanded to, I'll be your friend, you be my friend, and here's all of our friends here, and we're not going to pay tax, and we're going to not show up for these court dates, and we'll have strength in numbers. But it just takes personal development. I'm going back to this again. Particular attitude to life.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, this might sound all very obvious, but what isn't obvious to people is the magical or metaphysical aspect to this. That when one actually turns to these new modalities of thought that we've had in the last few decades, positive thinking, most of it is crap, by the way. Most of the New Age is crap.
Yes.
Yeah,
But there's a core of truth in there.
it's like a cult to me.
Yeah, it is, with all the bells and whistles. You also have all the different magical traditions. When you strip away all the eccentricities around those, you find it comes down to one thing: consciousness change. Now, the metaphysical or magical aspect of, this path is that the universe actually orders itself to accommodate your growth, to accommodate you meeting people of a like mind, of developing ideas, work groups, etc. To an astoundingly magical degree. I'm pretty certain that 99% of the listeners out there have had paranormal experiences of some sort of or another, or at least just really strange dreams that seemed prophetic, or an encounter with another, like an alien abduction or meeting an angel. And these are real things, and we tend to discount them. And again, we go around the world having these private thoughts of our own, and we think that they're unique. But really, again, with this magical side of life, if you actually talk to other people about these things, you'll find that they're not unique to you. They're common. And that is a part of the prison that the elites have us in. It's, again, not just banking, not just the political spectrum, not just the news, but they have us in a mind prison where literally we think, if we notice at all, we have paranormal experiences. We put them down as hallucinations or just one of those weird things, or we think we're special. Even some people eventually think they're God. If they travel down a spiritual path long enough, they will have that thought, maybe for a week or two if they're not unstable. But we need to talk to each other as well as develop ourselves, because, yeah, again, I reiterate, these experiences aren't unique.
Well, talking is what we do best on this show. So that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We're this platform. It's an open platform. We got people already in the chat. Welcome, Illusion Shattered. Welcome, Blue Blood. I think he's still here with us. We've had Aaron show up he's on location at his first campsite. So
Nice.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, me
I'm there
too.
with you.
And he's
But,
he's off to feed the pups, who
Yeah,
apparently
and he might
had
join
not
us. He
been
might join us
fed.
in a bit. He's got Wi-Fi there, so he might come in.
Yeah.
Not sure how well his phone
He
will
might.
work on his microphone or anything, but
Nice.
He may make it in and he may not.
Well, hello to the listeners. It's nice to be here. By the way, I want to point out that it's great to actually be on a podcast that Ola Demogard was on, and Thomas Sheridan.
we've had some fantastic guests.
You certainly
We
have.
sure have, including you.
Yep. We've had
Don't
Dr. Joseph Farrell on here with us. Yeah, we've had a numerous amount of guests. We haven't invited any of them back, so we should start, recycling our guests and just bring them back on and continue on. There's
That's
so
the
much
mark
to
of
talk
success.
about,
Yeah, when you can recycle your guests. Yep.
Ole Demogard, last time he was with us, he had to leave suddenly. I wasn't sure. what happened there, and we haven't really
Maybe you got a
touched base
phone
with him
call.
since. So, but I see him on Facebook. He does his Facebook posts every day.
He is very active, isn't he?
Yeah, well, he
He
basically
sees
does this for a
unique
living.
things.
This is what he does. Yeah.
So,
We'd like to get Fire Solution. We've tried to get Truth. He's not too much into the live hangouts. I was just talking to Illusion Shattered. He's chatting with us.
Ah, okay. Ole isn't.
No.
Well, when you say that talking is what you do best here on the podcast, let's talk then. Have any of you guys any supernatural experiences that you think are worth sharing?
Well, I don't know about supernatural, although I did see a ghost once. It was kind of a weird experience. You know, I was living in Las Vegas with my ex, and he was off at work, and I was sitting on the sofa in the living room where, you know, I was reading a book, and I just suddenly got this really creepy feeling like somebody was watching me. And I looked up, and on the other side of the room, there was this guy who I'd say was about 5'5", had you know, no shirt on, was wearing suspenders, had a big beer belly, you know, kind of bald. And I just blinked. You know, I was so stunned, I blinked and he was gone. And I thought, okay, that's weird. And it turned out that the owner of the house that we were renting it from had known the previous owner who had died in the house. And I started talking about this experience because we were friends with this guy. And I started talking about this experience. And when I described what I had seen, the guy's jaw just dropped and said, "You just described the previous owner." And I'm like, oh, okay.
That's pretty weird.
So, yeah, you know, I mean, he was just stunned, you know, down to the suspenders that he was wearing and everything, you know. It's like, oh my gosh. He says he never wore a shirt, always wore his pants with suspenders. And I'm like, wow, okay, that's wild.
Well, I grew up
But
with
I
my
have
parents.
had all. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Amy. Finish off.
No, I was just going to say that I've also had a spiritual experience, but we can get into that later. Go ahead with your supernatural experience.
Well, it's not too exciting. I grew up in our family had a family of 6 in our house, and when we were sitting in the living room watching the TV from the couch, something in the hallway to the left of us would all the time, and I'd turn and there's nothing there, right? Something like moved past through the hallway. And I think my sister mentioned it at dinner one night. She says, I keep seeing something. And all of our faces just turned completely white because we'd all seen the exact same thing, right? Over time. Now, I don't know. It could have been just as simple as a car driving down the street and it happened to catch a glare off the window, you know, or something like that, right?
Right.
A lens flare off the window. I don't know what you call it off a window, but, you know, a reflection of a light moving as the car goes by, right? It could be something just as simple as that, but that's my only real paranormal experience I've ever had.
Well, the thing to remember about these experiences is that our minds naturally discount them without us even noticing. The mind is a beautifully complex thing and can discard our experiences willy-nilly if it feels the need to. And we grow up in a society that really frowns upon these experiences because for hundreds or thousands of years, depending on where you live, these experiences have been related to being possessed by the devil or being, you know, insane or something. There's something fundamentally wrong with you. So we
Right.
have learned to ignore them, and I think that most people have had anomalous experiences that come to light sometimes when someone finally opens up, more and more.
Yes. Or when there's some key word or phrase or image or something that brings it up to the conscious level.
Yeah. And for that, it takes a degree of open-mindedness to even accept those hidden parts of yourself,
Right.
I find sharing these experiences are very important in the same way as talking about dreams. If you've ever heard the idea out there about reality being an illusion or a dream within a dream,
Yeah.
Well, of course you have it.
Lucid dreams, right?
Yeah, I've personally never had a lucid dream. I've had dreams, bucket loads of them myself, which happens when you start to pay attention to dreams, when you read about dreams online, or when you talk about dreams with other people that they've had. You yourself will tend to have dreams, and your dreams will become more lucid. They haven't for me, but that's the tendency.
Wow. One of my big things is back in about my early to mid 20s, I stopped not only remembering my dreams, but remembering that I had dreamt. Okay, I wake up in the morning and it's like, here I am, start the day. There's nothing that even makes me think about dreaming or dreams I may have had. And it's been that way for, maybe not 40 years yet, but getting there.
Okay. Wow.
So,
It's
yeah,
interesting we're talking about this because Aaron was on a show last week where he was having a conversation with a couple of panels there. He was getting interviewed and he was talking about having lucid dreams. I kind of wish he was here because he could share that experience that he had. It was very fascinating. If anybody's interested in that, just go to Rufus Cat channel on YouTube, and he's got that. I can't remember the name of the person he had the interview with, but it was
Nox Mente and Jerry Cthulhu.
Yeah,
the name of the show is Nox Mente, and it's Jerry Cthulhu is who was talking to him, plus another woman, and I never caught her name.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't know that she said, "Hi, I'm so and so." So it was sort of like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. At any rate, but I will say this: I did used to have I had about a handful of times when I started to do the lucid thing. And every single time, even though I would sit there going, no, 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 don't, I'd wake up the whole time. I could not stay in that lucid dream state. It was either not be lucid or I'd wake up.
Immediately wake up. Yeah.
Yep. And I would try so hard not to because I would be going, hey, wait a minute. This is cool. I want to stay here. No, don't take it away from me.
Yeah. I don't think anyone has come up with anywhere close to a convincing explanation as to why that happens to us.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no clues why.
It's kind of like when you die too, right? The your soul doesn't want to go yet, right? And you fight to stay, and then your energy stays here, right? Now, I personally don't believe in poltergeist activity. I just don't believe that. I don't think that something has the power to use some sort of kinetic mental energy, I don't know what you call it, energy to move things. I just never seen any real proof of it.
I personally haven't seen proof of it either myself.
But
I have
but I
seen
do
I
agree
have
with
seen real life humans turn psi wheels. If you guys know what those are.
No.
Say again. I'm sorry.
A psi wheel. You take a some you guys have blue tack over there? It's kind of like this mushy stuff you put posters up on walls
Oh yeah,
with.
I know. I know that. Yeah.
Tack.
Yeah. So you take a lump of that, you take a sewing needle, you stick it in with the point upwards, take a piece of paper, fold it over maybe 4 times, and fold it in such a way that it turns into a carousel, and place that on top of the needle. And if you are unblocked enough psychically, you can actually turn this wheel with your mind. It's quite a fascinating thing to see.
Huh.
That is interesting. Yeah.
So there is
Okay.
definitely a relationship between our inner life and the outer world, for sure.
Well, I'm certain that there is a relationship, but I'm also certain that we don't each create our own realities. That
No,
there,
that's rubbish. Yeah.
that this is a co-creation that we have
Yeah.
going. That we all put our input out there into it, and it is the culmination of what we all do. What we all input with our behavior and our intent.
Yeah. Personally, I traipse the middle road between there. I'm convinced that nothing that I'm not ready for will happen to me. That's a really confusing sentence. Sorry. Nothing that isn't for me will not happen. I've been in terribly dangerous situations. I've come close to death way too many times, and actually came out unscathed, not just alive, but unscathed. I believe that you can enter into a mind field, if you will, with your own attitudinal set and be reasonably safe, you know. I'm not one to believe that, you know, if you got hit by a car, then, you know, you obviously wanted that on some level, or...
Yeah, you chose that.
I find that so insulting.
Yes, it
You're
is.
not perfect enough. It's basically Christianity all over again.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you that when I had that accident that broke my pelvis on my motorcycle back in the day, it was not something I wanted, not in the least. I had no plans for that. I had no plans to go homeless either, but, well, you know how that goes. Best laid plans, right?
So Blue Blood made a comment here in the chat about Satan's last trick being where you die, go into the light. That'd be Satan's last trick on you.
Oh God, oh my God, that is so confusing and painful. That little thing that people tell you, it's kind of like one of those emails you get where it says, pass this along to 9 people and you will be blessed on Friday, or you'll go to hell.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Blue Blood, but man, that's some head fuck right there. Like it comes down to this, actually, and that's a good segue here, guys. You either believe that you live in a unlimited loving world, or you don't.
Right.
You know, like, we may have our physical affairs here on this planet, and we may get hurt. We eventually will get hurt. You know, we're all going to die. We're all going to suffer some kind of demise, and we're going to have conflicts. But above that, you know, do you believe that you're eternally safe? That's the question. You know, you can come to peace with the fact that you're going to get sick, you're going to get frail, and you're going to die. You're probably going to be poor at some stage. You know, all these horrible things can happen, but on the whole, do you feel safe in this world? Because if you don't feel safe, you will project a reality that is unsafe. You know, you will see the face that you shine.
You'll wind up having those things turned towards you. Yeah, I will say this, you know, despite the fact that, you know, at one point I had my thumb out on the road because I had nowhere to live and didn't know what else to do, and wound up riding around with truckers for a while. I felt safe. I always did. I always have. Never failed. Somehow I just knew that I was going to be okay.
Yep.
So.
And that's the difference. You know, people will say, oh, but, you know, people get abducted on the highways and murdered all the time. And, you know, the difference between you and them is that they assumed, they're just assuming the world isn't going to hurt them. But you knew.
Yes.
You had a belief, a very, very strong self-conviction.
Yeah, self-conviction. I will not call it a belief because I hate that word. It's got lie right in the middle. So, you know, but I had a knowing. Well, we'll put it that way. It was definitely a knowing that I was going to be perfectly okay.
Well, I hate to overgeneralize, but I mean, everything is really based on fear and fear alone. Because any choice you make in life is because you're scared of what the outcome could be if you don't. Right?
Well, I disagree with that, Ian, because if you think about it, I make a lot of choices in my life because I say, well, I could sit here and be a lump, or I can do this because I really like to do it.
Yeah, but you're afraid of being a lump.
No,
so
I'm not afraid of being
not be a lump.
I have chosen to be a lump. Every so often I've gone, I think I'll be a lump today. There's no fear involved. It's that, no, I'd rather do this right now. Be a lump then. You know, whatever. You know, I just have the energy for being a lump today. I don't have the energy right now. Or, you know, today I've got the energy and I'm not going to be a lump. I'm going to do it. So.
But when you look at it in the sense of false flags, for example, right? And price factors and people in the club going along to carry out their agendas, right? I mean, they're all because once you sign up and you sign your name in blood, you can't talk about it or you'll die.
Yes.
Right? So, you know, they have to lie to you in fear of them killing them, right?
Yes,
so,
in fear of becoming victim.
Yeah, exactly. Because you sign a disclosure agreement where if you say anything, non-disclosure agreement, right?
Yes.
And even when you're a music star, you sign on the dotted line, right? And you take the bait, right? They'll offer you everything, you know, all the money and the glam and the fame, but then after you're afraid of your own self because of what you've done to yourself, right? And
and to others.
Yeah, and to others, exactly.
Absolutely.
And then all they have to do is just threaten you or your family to go along to get along, right? Just like what's happened with so many of the stars out there. They've had personal relatives die in mysterious ways and things like that. Because I think they try to get out and then they show them, no, you're not getting out, right? We'll kill one of your family members so you'll stay doing what you're doing. Just be a good little puppet.
Well, I can see your side of the argument. Ian, is it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ian, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
First time I had to talk to you by name. I can see your side of the argument, but I would amend that to amend the word fear to anxiety, which fear is to use a New Age phrase, a lower form of anxiety. In that we do live with anxiety to burst a huge existential bubble here of death. Eventually we will die, and on some level we're all aware of that. The more aware of it, the better. but we are aware of it to some degree, and we have anxiety of, if I don't get out here and do this now, I won't be around later to do it. Like the passage of time itself, like Amma, you acknowledge when you need to be a lump. That's great. But then other times you feel the need to do something because time will pass and then you won't be able to do it again. Not only will you not be in a position to do it, but the world and other people will not be there. So it's anxiety, it's the motivating force to go out and do something.
True. But like we were talking, you were saying earlier, like we all have a good side and a bad side inherently within us, right? Basically the black and the white, right? Which is a heavy symbolism in the occult, right?
Oh, aye.
And I think we're just inherently, I don't know how, do you follow at all the whole David Icke, the reptilian race, mixing DNA with, do you follow, or do you subscribe to that?
I believe that it represents something that may have happened a long while ago. Absolutely, some kind of splicing or intermingling did occur. It's
right.
Just, who can really say what the ultimate truth is there?
Right.
What was your point with it?
Well, I believe that we just have an inherently side. Our left and right brain are always in conflict with each other.
I'm going to disagree with that too. Because, people keep saying, oh, we have a dark side and a light side. And, I've heard that for decades. And I keep looking for mine. And nobody ever points out a dark side to me. And I just don't see it. I don't know where it is. I could not put my finger on it. I could not describe
Anna,
it.
I don't want to be rude, but maybe you're just in denial.
Well, that could very well be. And I will not say that isn't true. I'm just saying I don't know where it is. I've looked for it. All I know is that I care very, very deeply about humanity on this planet. I have dedicated my life to bring forth a solution to the problem of psychopaths in control here. And I never think to myself, I'm going to do that person in, or I'm going to take that when they're not looking, or I just don't do that. It's like it's not ethical, and I will not do it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, I'll wait for somebody to point out when my dark side comes out. But so far, nobody's brought anything up.
Well, if I may say, I don't know where the dark and light side thing came up. I'm kind of confused how that got attributed to me. There definitely is an issue with our self-destructive behaviors and whatnot. We all have them to some degree or another. You might not necessarily see them as a dark side, as in, something that is harmful or evil.
Well, okay.
And I think that's the issue here, is that when we think of dark and light, we think of it as a spectrum with a very hard barrier in between the two, and this is neutral, and to the left you have dark, and then to the right you have light, as in anything that is maybe a little bit destructive is consigned to the dark side, when really we shouldn't be thinking of ourselves in that way. Sometimes we're just a little destructive. That might be bad for other people, and it might be bad for us. but really, in reality, we just need to take ownership of how we're bad to ourselves and other people. That's all. It's not some inherently pathological thing that's wrong with us. We're just a fragile species. We're going through a rough patch of evolution where we're not really sure who we are or how to handle ourselves or how to relate to others. We're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we constantly learn from our mistakes.
Well, I suppose if you define darkness as, using tobacco, yeah, okay. I use tobacco. I mean,
anything that can alter your natural balance, basically, right?
What is your natural balance?
We're supposed to be in a vibrational state where we're at total bliss.
Chocolate.
Are we?
Your body. Brussels sprouts will change it. Where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
Everything you put in your body affects your vibration. So you have to say, what is the natural vibration?
Cannabis oil.
There you go.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about that in the chat so far tonight. So I'd throw that in.
As in a curative?
Wilson here, they're all talking about medicinal use.
On the nuts and bolts side of things, China has just recently become the world's marijuana superpower.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, literally, they create the bulk of the world's marijuana now, like commercially. They sell it for CBD oil and for energy drinks and such.
Oh, really? Energy drinks, nice. Yeah, they've got it. Yeah. Oh, but they're so bad, they're so tyrannical.
Well, I'd have to say, having talked with somebody who's lived in China, there are aspects that are very bad. They had, in order to get connected to the United States, they had to do some very fancy footwork in proxies and whatnot. And it's bad if they're going to keep their people from knowing things. As soon as you have something that blocks knowledge, it's bad. It is bad.
Yeah, well, they have heavy internet censorship there too. So.
Exactly.
Persecution of religion and
the censorship here. We're getting the censorship here.
Well, that was kind of the point of my little joke there. We can look at these other countries and go, "Huh, wait a second, we're the same."
Yes.
Yeah, we're all human and fallible.
Actually, worse, kind of,
Yeah.
Because the true slave is the one that doesn't know he is one.
Oh, snap, man, snap.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
At least there they know they are.
Yes.
They figured that out a while ago.
Guys, I would so give up this comfortable Western existence for just knowing that I'm under alien occupation and organizing the underground and carrying a rifle and like my grandfather in the IRA, like he knew what he was under, he knew what he was fighting against. Things are plain and simple.
Yeah. It's virtually impossible to get off the grid, because people have tried here in Canada. They've tried to build cabins, self-sufficient cabins, but then of course the city or the crown comes in and says no, right, and they shut them down. It's really hard. The only way is to be basically homeless, right? That's really all what you can do to get off of this grid.
Homeless and unemployed. Yeah. I think it was Tex Mars who really got my attention when he said at the beginning of a lecture that mankind seemingly has been fleeing constantly westward since, modern history has told it. And we've finally arrived on the Americas, and now there's nowhere else to run. And that's it. All the frontiers are taken. We are now in a technotronic age. There's nowhere to run. We just need to stand and fight at this stage.
Space,
Yeah.
the final frontier.
Yeah, that's the one they're selling to us. But then,
I know. Yeah, I think it's time we just said, okay, that's enough of that. We're going to do it this way. And y'all can just piss off.
But once again, everybody's too afraid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the thing is, the way I've got it worked is when the first few brave people start doing that and get noticed, and people will start saying, hey, I could do that too. And if I add my voice to all of this, pretty soon there'll be all kinds of people doing this.
Right.
And so, I would be a brave soul, except that I don't have anything to be brave with in the terms of, I don't have a car I can drive around without a license. But if I had a car, you can bet your sweet ass I would not have a license on it. I would not have a registration. I would not register it. I'm not giving
that
it
is
to
a
them for
brilliant
the
example on
privilege.
screen. I've got to say, I remember this video.
Yeah, this is the video where it basically tells you exactly what Amy's talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, where the guy starts dancing and people look at him like he's whack-a-doodle, but then a few more people think, hey, I'll dance. And
While you guys watch that, I'll just pop off to the toilet for a minute, yeah?
All right.
Okay, yeah, I need a quick 2-minute break. How long is the vid?
That's 3 minutes. Yeah, just let's take
Okay.
a break and we'll come back.
All right.
I'm back, just so you know. That video does get wild. Literally everyone. To the point of pure excitement where they're just like, yes, I've got to be in this. Personally, I want to know what the first guy was on so that I can, take some.
Takes one brave, couple brave people.
Our hosts are back.
Yeah, sorry, I went to the toilet too.
Yeah, it's got to be done. Got to be done.
That's great.
Oh, that was a good laugh.
That was
So I
cool.
just wanted to take a minute here to wish all the people in the southern states, down in Texas, down in Florida, Louisiana. I just want to say that our prayers are all with you guys. I noticed Illusion Shattered in the chat. He's in Florida right now, and he's prepping to get out of Dodge. So I'm wishing him all the best.
Absolutely.
There was three hurricanes that they created. I mean, that occurred.
The interesting thing is that there are people in Florida who are kind of concerned about the fact that Irma isn't showing up on the radars.
Maybe hope.
Exactly. It may not even exist.
Yeah,
and if they evacuate everybody.
Did you guys see the CNN piece? They got caught doing fake news with that. They had the guy floating down the river or float, and there's a CNN crew, and the guy comes floating down behind them. So the guy runs away, and you see the camera catch one guy as he runs towards the vehicle, and he's in shorts and sandals.
Yep. And the next thing you know,
wherever you are called. And then the next scene, you see him pulling the guy out of the car, and he's got gum boots and waders, it looks like, on or something.
Yeah, right, or at least long pants and boots or something. Yes. Yeah. So, he wasn't in shorts and sandals.
Okay. Fine. The video was edited. It was cut. Okay. So
you can see the cut.
Just maybe, he may have been given those waders or whatever to go into the water to get him out. But at the scene of an accident like that, you're not going to just stop while a guy's floating down the river and change your clothes. I mean, you're just gonna dive right over.
You're gonna do whatever you have to do, irrespective of what you're wearing. Absolutely.
Right. So there's two sides of that coin, but
yeah,
you're right. I mean, it could be a hoax.
You can see the cut where they go to this handicap sign, and that's all you can see. And then all of a sudden it goes blurry, like blink, and it's blurry, and it comes back into focus. And then they pan past it, and it's like, okay, they cut that there.
But to me, something is happening in the moon and the stars, because we're having red moons, which have never been seen before. The eclipse, which was a rare rarity. All these
the eclipse
happening this year. It just seems a little bit.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I've seen red moons before. I've
seen the harvest moon before.
Yeah. But it is kind of all culminating in this time. He now goes by Schiller's List, but he was Spudgy Pang. He's been saying that we're going to, they did 9/11 and then 6/12. And I thought maybe they do something on 3/13 of this year, but nothing really happened on that date. But then I got to realizing, first of all, he's relating all of this to Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which was a Wednesday. And December 13th is a Wednesday this year. And 1 + 2 is 3. So there's your 3/13. So I'm watching that date at this point for something to happen in Seattle, which is where he's pointing to, because, they've got the Ferris wheel, the eye, and, he's been pointing a lot of stuff that looks Seattle-ish, and I'm thinking, you've got your Wednesday, you've got your Ferris Bueller wheel, you've got your 12, your 3/13, because they do 3/6/9, or in reverse 9/6/3, and it relates to the east, the south, and the west. And I forget, some esoteric piece that I've forgotten the name of. It may be the Kabbalah.
The Kabbalah tree shows 3/6/9 as the quick way to the creator. That's the hook and crook way to the creator.
So that's why, you know, I've got my eyes on December 13th this year.
Like, all due respect.
It was December 14th that Sandy Hook took place.
Right,
in
but it was
2012. But what's his name? The Adam Lanza, his death certificate said he died on the 13th.
Yeah.
Even if he existed at all, I thought it was weird that the death certificate was listed as the 13th.
Now, with all due respect to Spudgy Pang, like, he's beginning to sound like a broken record to me. He's been saying this and that's going to happen on this day and that day, and it's never. It's just like the 2012 thing, you know, where it's just you almost discredit yourself by trying to prophesize. You know.
Yeah, I won't make any absolute predictions, but like I said, I'll be watching that day, 12/13, because you know, we know that they do these things with their esoteric elements, and it would make sense. But you know, who knows that if the 13 is going to be in 2017 or not? It may be. It may still be something they're planning for 2020. I mean, who knows?
We don't know. No one knows the time or the day of anything. It's just
we actually only really know after the fact. Nobody that I've found has any bit of a clue as to what's going on. You know, I'm sorry. You know, no offense to any of the numerology, gematria, or people out there. Freeman Fly says he predicted 9/11, but you know, I'm not sure about that.
Well, and Ole Damagard said that he predicted Manchester, not Manchester, the bridge,
London Bridge, yeah.
The
Westminster Bridge.
Westminster. I knew it was
okay. No, I have to concede that.
Manchester or whatever. Yeah, Westminster.
Yeah.
He in fact, he's got evidence that he did indeed. He didn't predict it to the exact day, but he got in the time frame. You know, the general time frame. He predicted.
And that's good enough for this stuff, because most of it is a mystery. Nobody that I know of pointed this out, which you know, I made it a point to drill into people's heads, like for a whole year after Sandy Hook, is just months before what struck New York, but Hurricane Sandy.
Oh yes, because,
and you know, Sandy wasn't enough, so you needed a Sandy Hook.
Get this. I think it was 4 or 5 days before Sandy got to New York. I was watching a weather report, and the hurricane was off the coast of Florida. And the weather person says, you know, we're predicting that this hurricane will go up the coast, just off the coast, all the way up to New York, and then to New York. Sandy would hook into New York.
Yeah, it got steered.
when I sat there thinking, how the hell does he know that far in advance? You know, it can't be. And then when it did, I went, somebody was proving to those with eyes to see their prowess in controlling the weather.
Right.
Because that's the only way that they would have known that far in advance that the storm was going to Sandy Hook into New York.
There is a place called Sandy Hook, New Jersey as well, just so you know. Sandy Hook Bay.
Okay.
And also, remember, Amy, in the Batman movie, which was around that same time as well, they showed Sandy Hook in that map on the movie.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. So yeah, we know that all of that was very planned out. Both the storm and the in quotes shooting. Where, as far as I can tell.
There was a girl I used to watch her videos. I kind of lost track of her, but she used to show the radar of how they used to steer the storms.
Really?
And she showed how they would chemtrail over top to create that blanket of electrical
Yeah.
cloud of electricity, okay, to harness the current, right? And then
Mhm.
they would shoot hard combined with the chemtrails and steer that sucker wherever they wanted to steer it.
Yeah.
Okay. And
No,
that's the technology that they
there's
have, right? And it's
there's some.
basically
Go ahead.
pushing a magnet. It's like two magnets pushing away from each other. That's how it acts. It's the
Right.
electrical energy from the HARP weapon, from the laser or whatever it is,
Electromagnetics.
magnetic beam, right? And the electric medium created from the chemtrails themselves.
Yep. Now, there's somebody out there that is saying that it's not HARP, it's NexRad. And I'm thinking it's probably both.
Yeah, some sort, the same technology.
You know, they're
Tesla
An
technology.
infrastructure. That's what we're
Yes.
talking about here.
Yes. And they've got harps that do, you know, I say harps because, you know, there's like 23 or more harp capable facilities around the globe. So we'll just call them harps, you know,
they're
kind of
everywhere.
like Kleenex, you know, doesn't mean just that brand anymore. It means a tissue, right?
Even on her channel, she zooms in on Google Earth, the little tiny islands in the middle of the Indian Ocean and things, and there's these tall towers that cast this long shadow.
Yep.
They're everywhere. These towers are everywhere.
They've put forth the weather control mechanism greatly all over the globe, you know, and people, you know, one thing that gets to me is the people who try to say, you know, we've got to take care of this country, and it's like, it's not just this country. The problem is a global problem. Psychopaths in control.
Yep.
You know, the countries are just imaginary lines that they drew on the globe to be able to create enemies so that they could create wars so they could profit. Because virtually every war for a very, very long time has been funded on both sides by the same people.
Do you guys know who Lindsay Williams is?
Yes.
That rings a bell. Who's that?
He's the chaplain that was in contact with the quote unquote a couple of elites.
Yep.
And one of them that he knew personally, they would go to him for advice. You know, he was their chaplain, right? To confess their sins and things like that. So they confided in him enough to give him inside information of what they're doing. Okay. And I remember watching him some years ago talking about how under the U.S., the Western U.S., there's a huge oil reserve that they haven't even tapped into at all. Because if you're familiar with what the petrodollar is based upon, it's based upon that deal they made with the Middle Eastern countries that they would produce the oil and sell it to the Western countries using federal notes.
Yes.
Treasury notes. Okay. So that was the deal. You got to use our money, but we'll buy your oil. Right.
Right.
Okay, so now, because I heard him talking about this where they want to create in Louisiana and all along the southern states, they want to create a huge oil refineries and big factories for when they start drilling the oil in the U.S. Okay. And once that happens, of course, they can charge whatever they want, right?
Yes.
But they want to create that whole area down in the deep South America, clear it out so that they can put in all of this huge refineries and oil processing petrochemical plants.
And doesn't that chap your tail end when you know we don't need oil at all?
Well, exactly. Free energy is available. But besides the point, so that when these storms start happening like this and all these people are being displaced, they're talking about, well, where's everybody going to go? We got to evacuate Florida, right? Where's everybody going to go? Well, we don't know where they're going to go, but they're going to be displaced if it's bad enough. Okay, now it's for me to wait and see how it turns out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, heaven help us if they, you know, if it's destroyed completely. But that brings that back to mind again, how they do want to clear out the southern states for that. And they're going to create a super highway that goes directly from the southern states straight up into through Canada up into Alaska. where it's going to be a toll highway where you'll pay to go from city to city, and there'll be commercial lanes for trucks only, and they'll have to pay a yearly fee, a toll fee for that as well. Okay.
We got to get rid of money.
Now, I also watched, I was watching Matty D for Truth video the other day, and he mentioned something very interesting as well. He said, well, just think, Trump just backed out of that climate accord, right, with the United Nations, right? He backed out completely, said, no, it's a hoax, right? They could be creating all this nasty weather and all that to say, look, see, it's climate change. See, look, you bailed out, and now look what happened, and actually blame him for this. You see,
they're already, yeah, they're already trying to claim that these big storms that are record breaking are because of the global warming, the climate change, and it's like, oh, geez, right. We just knew that story was going to go. Anyway, listen, we've had a request in the chat that Howard...
Yeah, we should get back on topic again.
Yeah,
well, isn't that what always happens here, conspiracy or not? Welcome to the show.
Yeah, really.
It's the flow of conversation.
He said,
I get it.
Yeah, he said he wants to hear about Irish culture, and I've already forgotten how to pronounce it.
Brehon laws.
Brehon laws.
Right. Yeah, a passion of mine. Not really peripheral when you really think of what the Brehon laws represented. Is the perfect pre-Christian society. And it wasn't just exclusive to, say, Ireland, which, you know, the Brehon laws refers to. The law of the Brehons, the men who, they weren't employed by the king, they weren't assigned by a bureaucrat, but they were elevated simply by their reputation in the community to mediate between individuals. And we've heard of the sovereignty movement, the Freeman movement, which we touched upon. I think.
Yeah,
or,
briefly.
No, that was actually before the show. Sorry.
Right.
The suggestion of those people are that you know, legislation does not matter. Legislation is written by men. It is only applicable to those who consent to it. While the Freemen and the sovereignty movement, particularly, they are pushing for a system that wants to wants to mediate between people. When you suffer a loss at the hands of another, or the hands of a corporation, maybe, that instead of jailing people, executing people, or persecuting people for what most people would know as victimless crimes, that we should live in a compensation-based society, that one should be forced to pay the victim back monetarily or in any other resource capacity. And that was the law, the system of law in our society, that one did not go to jail for a crime, one did not get murdered for a crime, one did not get fined or jailed or murdered for a victimless crime. It was solely, if you hurt another, you had to pay that other, whether it was an ordinary man, a chief, or a king. We were all equal. And the Brehons, who were respected in their community by all, they made sure that that system stayed, that since they were respected by all tiers of community, they weren't inclined on bowing down to kings or violent men who would manipulate them. And for some reason, this system of law survived for thousands, untold thousands of years in Ireland before the common law system via the Saxon British came in and displaced it. It took a whole 700 years for the occupation of Ireland to finally uproot that system. And it's not only in the what we would say today call the legal sense that the Brehon laws were in effect. It was a philosophy of life itself. Each individual had full knowledge of the law. They were brought up to understand what is the law. You don't harm another. You don't take another's property. If you do wrong to another, you compensate that other, or you will be brought before a Brehon. Much like in a court situation we have today, where you have the judge and then you have the offender and the plaintiff. Back then you had the Brehon, the offender, and the plaintiff. Now, this system was, as I said, it was a philosophy, it was a whole social structure. It touched how we treat the environment, how we treat women, particularly. That is a big concern for people today, is, how do we treat women? Across the board, they are the most frail of the sexes, and are subject to a large degree to how men treat them. In ancient Irish society, they enjoyed equal rights. Sometimes they would even come out on top in legal proceedings. When it came to divorce, for instance, which existed in Ireland for as far back as we can tell, it was actually made illegal at the founding of the Free State in 1919. I believe that is the founding of the state. I couldn't get that year correct. If he paid me €1 million, because the Free State, as the government of Ireland currently, because it means nothing to me. But upon that founding,
what is the Free State? What is that referring to?
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little all over the place here. When we finally threw off the yoke of British oppression, as a lot of people would phrase it, we founded a republic, and that is the current Republic of Ireland. Okay. Upon the founding of that republic, we didn't go back to the Brehon laws, these ancient ways that have sustained us for thousands of years. We actually adopted the common law system. And within the common law system, we had the Christian values as well. And that within our constitution was enshrined the prohibition against divorce. It was only in the year of 1996 that we finally held a referendum and said, okay, people can get divorced now. And I just found it quite a funny little thing to point out, that it was only for a brief few decades in Ireland that one was disallowed from divorcing. While before that time, it was commonplace for a man and woman to divorce. It wasn't the fracturing of a family that it is today. It wasn't so earth-shaking. It was just a man and a woman saying, okay, well, we don't want to be together anymore. So, let's just split up our stuff and we'll be on our way.
Right.
There were very, very precise things set in place, such as, the man would get the home, but the woman would get all the fruit of her labor. everything that she put into the home, she can take away in the form of resources, find another place to live or find another man to be with.
Right.
And when it comes to the family structure, it didn't affect the children's life as much because, well, we were a tribalistic society. We were closer knit. A child without a parent was impossible in Ireland. It just didn't happen. Fosterage was a very commonplace thing. There was no such thing as a bastard child, for instance. If you had a child out of wedlock, that was just a child. It was up to the community to take care of that child if the parents weren't in a position to do so. Often, families would adopt children of other families or even rival families for the sake of building trust between those families. So when I say the Brehon laws, I don't mean a particular system that today we could impose upon, say, modern Ireland or modern America, and it'll all work out dandy. What we're talking about here is a state of consciousness, a state of social cohesion that existed naturally.
You know, one of the symptoms in society that is run by psychopaths is that you get what they call secondary psychopathy, where people start choosing psychopathic behaviors because it's easier for them to survive in that society. And I think that the reason we see so little cohesion in society is because we are run by psychopaths. It sounds like Ireland didn't have a whole lot of psychopaths running things. So, you know, I'm guessing that that's, you know, if we can get a system going that does not promote the psychopaths, but instead promotes the caring ones, we will see a lot more of that community emerging.
I'm personally of the opinion that it's just, you know, brass tacks, it's just family structures. If we can, you know, again, you know, it comes down to, you know, people being adult enough, you know, evolved enough, if you want to use that term, to actually recognize the importance of family. But I think family is the first step because a big part of really I'm just approaching this subject holographically. I mean, that's just the way my mind works. But another aspect of the Brehon system was families itself. You were part of a family. There was no way for you to not be part of a family. And that's a big reason why fosterage was so important to our people, because you had to belong to someone. And the head of a family, whether male or female, was answerable to your actions. Before a Brehon could be pulled in to discuss a dispute that can't be resolved, they would first go to the father or the mother, the patriarch, the matriarch of the family. They would discuss things, and that's how things were mediated. If you live in a society where there are no family structures, then there are no, you know, it's like you need a cell, you know, biologically, you need a cell to relate to another cell. You can't just smash those things up and expect order to come out of that. So this is something we need to come back to.
I agree that what I'm envisioning, you know, with the removal of money, where we don't have to plug our energy in somewhere, to get a few tokens so that we can manage to survive, but that we all can live as richly as we choose on our planet, having removed the artificial scarcity that money creates. This gives us time to spend with the ones we love. We no longer have to say, you know, I'm sending you off to school so that I can go to work. You know?
Yep.
We can I believe that the family will emerge again as the most important element in human society, important social construct. That's what I envision seeing. I think it will happen when we get the free energy out so we can stop accounting for hours.
It's a tricky one because that takes people to step outside of the system, and you know, in order to step out of the system, you need to have your own free time, and it's just a endless loop of, you know, what do you do? What comes first, chicken or egg?
Yes,
And you know, it really comes back to who are you? What are the decisions you're making? And you know, will you stick your neck out even just a little bit within your little finite life to rebuild something bigger? Like, for instance, today, homeschooling in Ireland is on a record inclination. Like, it's doubled in the past 2 years.
awesome.
And also, Gael schools, the schools that operate primarily in Irish, they have seen record numbers of new children coming into it. And as far as I'm concerned, language is key to consciousness. It's key to cultures. So having a return to the Irish language is very important for us here in Ireland. So I see this going in a positive direction. It's just taking a long time, but it needs to be spoken about. It needs to be popularized, because these people who are bringing their children to Gael schools, at least at this stage, they're traveling extra miles. They're putting in extra effort. The people who are homeschooling their children, they're taking a hit to their income. You know, this is about personal sacrifice. This is about deeply held belief that people have, and that's what we need, is deep conviction.
Yes, and that is something that the psychopaths have tried to weed out of us. So it's a battle.
It is. But it starts with us as individuals. It really does.
Absolutely.
Well, like the old saying goes, be the change you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
We are the ones we've been waiting for.
So, very interesting. It's all about working together, and just that's the only way that we can get things done, is just to try to work together, right?
Absolutely. Co-create the better planet for the ones who come after us.
And it's great that we're reaching out to people all across the world. We've had guests. We've had a guest from Russia on with us. We Denmark, of course, Ole in Spain. We've had God, from all over. We've never had anybody from Australia or New Zealand, but
no, or China.
Yeah, well, we'll never get that, will we?
Not necessarily.
Not in the foreseeable future.
If I run into somebody else who has managed to jump through all the hoops to get out of China, we might be able to get them on. But for right now, doesn't look positive anytime soon.
Oh yeah.
Well, there is he's currently missing. Nobody knows where he is now, but there's a Chinese human rights lawyer in China, Gao Zixing. Can't fucking pronounce that. Sorry. But if he does appear again, he would certainly be someone that you could get a hold of. because he's done great work, and he's a pariah to the Chinese establishment.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, I like the pariahs to the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just know so little about China. We don't get any information at all,
Yeah.
except for what our
That's the problem.
mainstream media shows us.
Yeah, and like
It's
we can
strange.
trust that media that we have.
Oh, they never lie, Amy. Come on.
Never, ever, ever, ever.
Now you're just being ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah.
They wouldn't ever.
So, have you guys had any kind of major false flag or any kind of hoax over there that you know?
In
of?
Ireland,
Yeah.
depends. I mean, like, are you just talking about post 9/11 era? Because
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
I'm concerned, the whole of like 90% of what happened in Northern Ireland was fucking false flag. No, we are as yet untouched, but we are seeing patterns here that are hinting towards an attack eventually.
Aha. So
I would say
they're
within the
building-
next year we would have our first terrorist attack.
Okay, well, you heard it here
yeah.
first, folks. You heard it here first.
Yep. They're gonna set something up for Ireland pretty soon.
Are you guys allowed to carry guns there, or are they?
Oh no,
Are they
we aren't
stripped that
even
away
allowed
from
to
you?
carry knives, man.
Really?
Yeah.
We are a declawed society.
Right. Yeah.
And we have been brainwashed by the whole Northern Ireland bullshit to fear doing anything radical, fear protecting oneself in any way, even though violent crime and gang activity is on exponential rise in this country. We are yet unallowed to carry self-protection. Nor do we want to carry self-protection. We're stuck in this. First, it was the 90s where, oh, thank God, all this violent stuff is over up there, meaning the north of Ireland. And now we're into this new age progressive thing where, I don't know, my beliefs will protect me against violence or something like that.
Right. Brainwashing.
Yeah, basically.
Yep.
Well, kind of groupthink too, right?
Oh,
Well, I just did a search for Ireland ISIS car attack because Blue Blood said, I thought Ireland just had a hoax car attack by ISIS, which we know is manufactured by the CIA and Mossad. And they only, well, Mossad is Israel.
Oh, Mossad, right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Lag.
Anyway, I'm not seeing any news reports of anything happening, but these are the headlines I'm getting. A number of young Irish people have left Ireland to fight alongside ISIS.
Yeah, that's the terminology you get a lot in Ireland, that if you are even given a temporary visa to stay here, you're suddenly Irish.
We have
Really?
ISIS in Ireland, Gardaí, probe, FM 104 interview amid warnings. Let's see, an attack on Ireland by ISIS or Al Qaeda could happen any day. Let's see. Ireland branded Europe's weakest link after chilling ISIS video.
Yeah. We all know how chilling those are.
We love the gematria of chilling too. It's quite interesting. Anyway, IRA and ISIS working together to launch car bomb campaign.
What?
Oh,
How does that even make sense?
I know. Let's see.
Good God.
After ISIS issued chilling threat against Ireland, it goes on, it cuts off. But I mean, really, really, this is just so totally insane.
When was that? What's the date on that article here?
Which one? The
ISIS and
ISIS
IRA.
and IRA working together.
let me find out. I've got it on DuckDuck, so I don't get a date there. But let's see.
Okay.
I'll look at it. Friday, April 15th. Oh, our collect the extortion day, 2016.
Okay. Yeah, your tax day, right?
Over a year ago, they were setting up the propaganda for ISIS. So yeah, it could be pretty soon. I agree. Oh gosh.
There were raids on houses and such. Oh, ISIS is here in Ireland, and they've been doing that for about 2 years now. And, it's really just to reinforce the collective trance that people are in. That we aren't really bloodthirsty over here. We're not we're actually anti-war here. We are pro-Palestinian here.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah.
In Dublin, the city council they flew the Palestinian flag overhead for a month.
Really?
Yeah, in solidarity. Wow. It really pissed off the
Zionists.
What you call them? Yeah, the spies. The spies in Ireland, dangerous people, man.
Right.
I have been doxxed by pro-Israelis in Ireland, by the way. Right. Scary people. You say anything against them, they're onto you.
Oh boy.
But the thing is that it's not so much that they want to gear us up to support a war, because we are historically neutral. They just want to keep us in fear, in a sleep, or at the very least, not thinking about world events. Because, either you're a renegade like us, or you're pro-war, or you just don't think about it.
Yeah. Well, other than making millions of dollars, I mean, isn't that what TV was made for? Was to keep us distracted and misinformed? Yes. I mean, really.
And programmed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what I was hoping to touch upon in this discussion was, when you say programmed, that the implication is that there was already a program there. Or rather a natural state. And what is that natural state? I'm sorry to come across as a guy who's trying to sell a used car, but we really got to think about this stuff, what is at the root of this? When you really dig deep down, isn't it all kind of distraction? Say Sandy Hook, man, when that shit went down, it was so obvious. Everyone knew, even my little sister, who was 16 at the time, I think. I was visiting, and I went to make a cup of tea in the kitchen, and she came in behind me, and she was saying, "Oh, what about that Sandy Hook thing? That was really weird." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not even sure it even happened." And she said, "Yeah, I was like, whoa, what the fuck?"
How old is she?
I was 16 at the time, and she even knew it was shit. And
yes.
I had to think, wait, why? Why on earth have they made it so bloody obvious that this is a false flag, that even in Sandy Hook, that town, there's in the roads, you can make out an owl in the roads.
Oh yeah. Well, that the
Newtown, right?
The east.
Yeah, Newtown.
The East Coast, I don't know, High Temple, whatever, for the Church of Satan is in Newtown.
Well, there's called what's called the Church of Tiamat there too. There's also another.
Yeah, they've got all kinds of very odd things.
Now,
yeah,
funny
and that
you
down.
mentioned that, Amy, because right beside the school, guess what's right beside the school? Freemason Lodge, right next door.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
come on.
Freemason
And,
Lodge. Right
yeah, it's
there.
right next door. And also, get this, Howard. I don't know if you're aware of what ley lines are.
Oh, aye.
Ley lines are an energy grid that surrounds the Earth, and they form lines of concentrated electromagnetic energy, right? Which has a lot to do with ancient technologies as well. They harness this energy and things. Okay, but to make that story short, basically, there's what's called the Temple of the Feathered Serpent in Mexico. Tijuana, Aaron knows the name. But basically, that ley line goes from directly over top of that temple, straight across past Sandy Hook School, where the old school was. So it's completely aligned. And also, sorry,
is that Teotihuacan?
Yeah, yeah. I can never pronounce that. Teotihuacan. But anyway, and also the old school, the layout of the school, when you look at it on Google Earth, like overhead, it looks exactly the same layout as the Temple of the Feathered Serpent.
Oh, yes, now that is interesting.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. But that's the old school. They tore it down and built a new school already for $50 million, whereas other schools only cost 10.
Well, you know why they had to tear it down is because it had been condemned years before, you know.
Yeah, it was already, yeah. Are you familiar with James Fetzer, right? Jim Fetzer?
No.
No, we've had him on our show. He's a very good researcher into all of that. He's interesting to watch.
Okay. Yeah, what do you guys think of Jay Widener's suggestion that the whole place is basically a cult town, that everyone in there knows exactly what it's all about?
Absolutely.
Well, the funny thing is that it was called Newtown, right?
Yeah.
And all of the residents of Sandy Hook, the little suburb of the town, were all new to town. They'd all been in there less than 3 or 4 years. They're all new residences.
And their houses.
The whole town is creepy.
And their houses sold for $0.
Yeah, they got them, give them to them on Christmas Day. Their properties. Like, what kind of real estate, registry agency is open on Christmas to actually, do the transaction of this sale of the house for $0 on Christmas?
Yeah. Well, also, that there's very public records out there that show like a statistically astronomically unlikely amount of people in Newtown who won the lottery after Sandy Hook. I've always suspected. I've always suspected that the lottery was, a way of paying people off for things. I play it once a week, but, there was even a video from Croatia that, it was quickly scrubbed, but, it's still online out there, of where a ball that came up in the lottery was announced before it actually came out of the drum.
Oh, they're not rigged. They're not rigged at all.
No.
And the news always tells the truth.
I think you would have to be a fucking moron to believe that the news and the lottery is never rigged.
And sports.
So are sports. I was going to say that too. So all professional sports are rigged too.
Yes, they are. Very much so.
They're all coded. The numbers are all there.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If you look into it, you'll see it.
Well, taking all of that into account, guys, and when you look at Newtown and how positively creepy it is and obvious once you take a look at it, why in the world would you stage a false flag in it? With all of these people online who have, at least back in 2012, it was 2012, right?
Yes.
Yeah. you know, we had considerably
24.
more freedom and more reach with the public, you know, in terms of getting this information out. Why would they do this? For me, this was
I can tell you
perfectly.
why.
Yeah, let's each
Okay,
do our own
please.
opinion on this. Just go
I
ahead.
can,
Okay.
my divide and conquer. When you have a certain percentage of people actually taking a look and going, wait a minute, none of this makes sense. That can't be real. And then you have the people who just listen to the news, and that's where they get their information from. Then you wind up with a big divide. I mean, you take a look at my family. They think I need mental help because I think Sandy Hook was fake.
Yeah.
You don't think it, you know it.
Yes, well, from their perspective, I think Sandy Hook was fake.
Right.
So
Her
I
grammar was on point.
need mental health evaluations and.
Well, can I add to that?
Yeah, go, Howard.
Yes.
What's your take
Okay.
on all
Well,
that?
like, okay,
Give me
yeah,
the reason you think they
that
did
is that. There you go. The divide and conquer, absolutely, and also to scare the living fuck out of people who, not only us seasoned researchers who have been on top of this all this time, but the overwhelming amount of people that we managed to convince over Sandy Hook. Just like it's like you take a little toddler and you throw them into the deep end of the pool and expect them to swim. We are seeing a lot of trauma online when we look at our friends in the struggle dealing with this information. They're in trauma. They have no control of their lives. There are countless stories of people who have just lost their shit. Their lives have fallen apart. People have abandoned them, or they have abandoned the people in their lives. It depends on the character of the person. And that's not good. It's not good in terms of like for them as individuals or some kind of broader solution that we want to reach. It's not good. So they knew, oh yeah, these guys are onto us, so let's fuck with their heads. Like, if you guys ever heard of targeted persons, oh, well, that was a dumb fucking statement right there. I'm sure everyone's heard of targeted persons, right?
Targeted individuals, yes.
Targeted individuals.
Sorry.
I strongly suspect that that's what I am, but that's another story for another time.
I have been a targeted individual, and I laid low, and not because I knew exactly what was going on, but because they actually did the job. They took me off the grid for like 5 years. They totally fucking traumatized me, and one of the ways that they do it is that they let you know that they're doing it.
That's right.
You know?
That's right. We've talked about this in our show before, but I'll go into that when I go to explain my theories.
Okay, of course. So, like, the overall agenda here, from my perspective, is to just traumatize us on a collective level and an individual level so we can't do shit.
Psychological warfare.
There you go.
Yep.
It's trauma-based mind control.
There you go.
Those poor kids, we have to do something. Problem, reaction, solution.
Oh, God. The Manchester attack, that was the lowest blow of them all.
I'll give you my few takes on Sandy Hook.
Yes, yes.
I think there's 10 different reasons. Nearly, I can count 10 in my head. For one thing, it was a FEMA drill. It was called a capstone exercise. They had a manual for this drill as well, saying that they'd be serving refreshments and food.
Yep.
They said you'd have to go in and you'd have to check in, and we seen a sign that said everyone must check in.
Oh, that's why everyone was circling through the fire building.
It was a drill gone. Okay, now, it wasn't a drill on that day, per se. Maybe there was some activity that day just for the live stream, but everything else that we saw on the TV was already pre-recorded.
Yep.
Okay. It was they take snip bits of a drill exercise and put it in front of your face. We know that because we saw that the ambulances were all blocking the parking lot, or not the ambulances, all the emergency, the vehicles, right? And you couldn't get any ambulances in there if you tried. Okay. What we saw, the guys running up into the woods and all that, was just a part of a drill exercise. Okay.
Yep.
But basically, that's what they want to do. They want to do these drills, and the only way, if you go up against the public and you say, look, we want to do terrorism drills, okay? And the people, like at a school, for instance, you go up to a school board and say, we want to do a terrorism drill in your school. They'll go, no way, you're not going to traumatize the kids. Or A, they may traumatize, or B, they might go along with it for fun, right? But they need an excuse to do nationwide drills. And that's the perfect excuse, is that, look what happens, right? So we have to be prepared.
Yep.
Okay, so that's one aspect of it, right? To get away with a drill, right, that they wouldn't normally be able to do, right? Just like Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste, right? That means that we can do things that we would not normally be able to do given a circumstance or a situation, right?
Right.
Also,
but can I make one point about
go ahead.
that they don't let good crises go to waste, because I mean they do let crises that are real go to waste because they can't control the narrative 100%.
Yeah, and you don't hear about them because they don't have an agenda to push. But also, they have to do their problem, reaction, solution scenario. It was all about a gun control measures, because it was shown right after Sandy Hook, they passed all these draconian gun laws, okay?
Yep.
Because of the shooting, and they used that to pass this legislation. So nationwide gun control. Also, the day of, they're already talking about, what we have to do about guns and blah, 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 right? Not blaming the individual, just blaming a gun the gun one day walked into a school and shot everything, right?
Dragging the guy along with
the kid along with them, right?
Yes.
Okay. But okay, so there's that. And then also they need to create legislation as well, so that they can cover their tracks when they do these exercises as well. And in Sandy Hook, or Newtown in Connecticut itself, they passed a legislation just shortly before the incident, blocking any freedom of information requests from the police reports. They could legally get away with saying, no, you're not allowed to see them when they are public. They're for the public. They passed that legislation. Also, they passed legislation through the new gun laws too, right? Now, when it comes to them showing us what they're doing, right, and making it look so obvious, right, that it is fake, it not only muddies the waters when it comes to real investigations, right? It creates a scenario where there's so many things that they do, and how fake it is and everything, that people would go, well, how would, just what you said, how could they make it seem so fake? And why would they do that, right? That way they can muddy the water.
It must be real, because nobody would do something that poorly.
Exactly. Yep. And that's what somebody would say. Well, they'd get better at actors than that, wouldn't they? Right. They also want to show us what they're doing to us while they're doing it to us, because what that does is, Howard, are you still there with me?
I am, yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I've been talking about this for a while, where I believe that they need to relieve their own karma. The elites that do these things to us know it's horrible. They know they're doing evil upon us, and they need to release that karma and show onto the creator that if it's allowed to happen, it will happen, and it can happen. It's that do what thou wilt philosophy in that sense. But I believe that it's a release of karma for these elites. And that's pretty much what I can think of at the top of my head. Other than that, I mean, mental control issues as well, because Adam Lanza, right, he was all mental and blah, blah, blah. And then now with Lenny Posner out there and all these other, I'm pretty much convinced it's just a CIA, it's not a real person, Lenny Posner, I don't think. I'm not sure. They've got a guy that goes out and says he is, but anyway, they can create. They can control the conversation too. They can put things out on the news after and say, look, this guy was harassing the families, right? Oh, he's such a bad guy. He's calling the family, but he only asked questions, right? He called and asked them questions and put them on a spot, right? So they had to put out and there's one guy that's been put in jail. He's been in jail for a while because he called the families.
And then there was that that professor in some university or other, right? Who was crucified on television because
Stephen Jones, wasn't it?
No.
He went as far as saying it didn't even happen.
Yeah, that was David. Hold on a sec.
Somebody else.
I'm sure it could easily be looked up by anyone. Professor who said Sandy Hook didn't happen, because it's bound to be plastered all over the place.
James Tracy, that was his name. Dr. James Tracy.
That was it. James Tracy. I knew it in there somewhere.
He got fired from the university because, and he wasn't even talking about Sandy Hook directly. It was just a class about critical thinking and stuff. And he used an example like we should look into these things, and he used that as an example.
Oh, really? Okay.
He wasn't really even exposing anything. He was just, what he was exposing was out of the classroom, right? Because he had his website and his Facebook page and all that exposing the false flags, right? The hoaxes. But he never brought that into the classroom, and they blamed him for bringing that into the classroom, you see.
Well, he threatened to. I mean, that was his way in, and I guess that's why they eventually hung him for it.
Yeah, well, he was a threat.
Yeah. And, God forbid you actually teach critical thinking to people these days, because that's the main
critical
threat.
Thinking is something they want to never have a clue about.
Well, they don't want us to be crew. They want us just smart enough to run the machines and clean the floors. But do you know who Wolfgang Halbig is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, he's
don't
a
know
hero
what to think of him.
Now he was brought away. He was, basically scared out of there. So he's had to shut everything down. He hasn't been around. He hasn't made it public for a while. I don't know. I think he might have his website still. I'm not sure. But I think they might have made him take it down. But he basically got to the truth of everything, where we could see they were lying in those hearings he attended, that he, his FOIA hearings. We could tell that these people were lying and covering up something.
Yep.
Because even the lady, she's like the town hall for Newtown. They had her in there, and they said, well, who put up those signs that everyone must check in? Who put that up? She says, oh, I don't know. It must have been Homeland Security. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Did you just say Homeland Security? And these signs were put up less than 2 hours after the actual event.
Yeah.
So you're telling me where is Homeland?
They just had that on hand
anywhere near Newtown.
Yeah.
Anywhere near it. And they also had cops from all over, really far away, like more than 4 hours drive, that were there too. So that was really suspicious. There's even a photo of the Homeland Security vehicle as well in one of the pictures. So that was brought out into the light by Wolfgang, which was really great. And the lying police chief as well, and everybody else. If you're really interested in that, folks, go and watch Wolfgang Halbig's Sandy Hook FOIA hearings, and just watch them. It's on a channel called Mert Melfa. You know that? Who that is? He's got them all on his channel. But very interesting to see how these people act when they're being asked questions about what happened.
There's loads of examples of that. It's
almost
love it.
beautiful to watch.
I like
Yeah.
Trey Gowdy so much. You know who Trey Gowdy is? Do you know?
Mhm.
No, he's a politician. He's a what is he? A senator? Or,
I don't know.
I think he's a
I
senator.
can't keep. I don't keep track of that system.
But
I'm not part of it.
he's a true patriot. If you watch him, he exposed the Hillary Clinton emails. He exposed the IRS scandals. He's exposed all of these things. Right?
I'm going to
James
suggest that that's
Comey.
part of the play.
Yeah, I know. But I really do think that there are still some good people in government.
Well,
that,
except when you
I don't
realize
know.
that government is a corporation and no corporation is going to let the average person choose their officers. That includes the CEO and that includes all the other ones too.
Yeah, I
Those are
understand.
all people that were selected by the investors. The end.
Right.
It's like if it were the La Cosa Nostra, you know, the Italian mafia, but 200 plus years old, you know. I don't think you're going to find a dissenter in their ranks, you know.
Yeah.
Not one that's really a dissenter, but there will be people who will play that part to dupe us into thinking the show is real.
Yeah. I guess I'm hoping on the bright side, you know, that there are still some.
I guess I'm just a realist.
I know.
And I guess I'm just a new ager, and I have to say, man, you know, turn away from the government and turn to yourself, brah. You know?
Look within yourself. You are
Yes,
your
you
own
know.
universe. Oh boy. We don't want to get into that topic. We've got atheists in the house.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how atheism got inextricably linked to believing that the universe is just boring, dry old matter banging up against each other. Oh wait, no, I do. It's a Christian called René Descartes. Yeah, you know, you stand on the shoulders of giants, but you know, when you're an atheist, you stand on the shoulders of assholes.
Yeah, well, it's like Amy said earlier in the show, you know, about the beauty of the world, right? And its abundance, and it's, you know, it's completely abundant. It's self-sustaining, right? But you know, I just believe we're put on this Eden because this is our gift, right? We're God's kids, and this is our gift. And there's just some poison-minded individuals that just are out to destroy it, you know, from the get-go.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And whether you believe in Satan cast down to earth to cause all this chaos or not, I think that's just a representation of that, you know.
Metaphor.
Metaphorically. Right.
Well, like even if you're a Christian, or even if you're a magician like myself, the principle remains the same, that it is all within you. I mean, that is, to paraphrase Jesus, that's basically what he said. You know, are you a good person?
Well, you are the temple. That's what he said. You are the temple.
Exactly.
The temple's within. It's not in walls. It's not in a building. It's not in a church. It's not anywhere. It's in yourself.
And no matter how disgusting the outside world may become, you know, we all here, and the listeners, you know, care deeply about the world and what's happening to us as a species. We wouldn't be here if we didn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can still find the temple of God, to put it Christian wise. You can find that within. It doesn't matter. And the more that you focus on that, the more that it will come in the outside world, guaranteed. If you want a second opinion, go talk to God yourself. You know, go talk to Jesus.
But you know, when you get older, you do realize that, you know, it is hard to follow one strategy or one path, you know, because your mind is a lot more open and you're more knowledgeable, and it's really hard to find that that path to inner peace. I guess the old saying goes, you got to love yourself to love others, right?
Yeah.
But when you don't really know for sure if what you're doing or following, like say you follow in a religion, right? Maybe you convert to Islam or something, right? You don't really know deep down if you're doing the right thing or not. Maybe you have a feeling that you are, but you don't really know if you are, right?
Mm.
And that's what I'm afraid of when it comes to these elites, is that they've created this Christianity and all that as a guise to go down leading you down the wrong path, sort of thing. But I just kind of believe, that we just have to follow the golden rule in life, and that's was taught to us by Jesus, right? And we just follow those rules, and like
the very
Amy's
least.
rules, like Amy's 3 ethics, right?
The 3 laws of ethics, which are basically the golden rule, but put in a more concrete form.
Yeah, just say them again.
And basically Brehon Law as well.
Well, the only thing that I see, the thing that makes it different is that when you get rid of money, so much of the problems go away that you don't need much in the way of law per se, really. But the 3 laws of ethics are: do not willfully and without fully informed consent hurt or kill the flesh of another. The second one is: do not willfully and without fully informed consent take or damage that which does not belong to you alone. And the third one is: do not willfully defraud another, which can only happen without fully informed consent.
So
And
Howard,
what else do you need?
Yeah, really. I mean, that just rounds it off. Don't hurt, steal, or disrupt anyone else, and you're fine. So Howard, in Ireland.
Yep.
How awake are they in Ireland? Would you say they're more awake than they are here in the West, or less? Is it hard to say? Or?
It is hard to say. I would say that we are man to man a little more open-minded.
Okay.
But we are more culturally traumatized in that we don't tend to talk about these things with each other. And maybe, you might notice that as well in the United States, that you don't necessarily, this isn't a natural part of conversation unless, you specifically made a friend through this kind of research, or,
Right.
subculture. Yeah, of course, but it doesn't come up in, in the train station or,
Right.
at work.
Yeah.
But Ireland is more so like that. And we have a thing where we're more inclined to toe the line publicly. If you were to open up conversation with someone in work, or in public, we may have doubts about something, but we would generally just toe the line,
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's when it comes to politics or race relations or conspiracy, we will default to this overarching kind of way that we're supposed to think, and then mirror back to each other what we're supposed to say in that situation.
Right.
Am I clear?
Yeah, I get it.
And a lot of it comes down to the fact that we don't actually have freedom of speech here.
Right. You guys have been through revolutionary scenarios, you know, in such a close environment too, right? It's on a little rock. There's a lot of history on that little rock.
Oh yeah. It goes back thousands of years. Yeah, and you know,
Yeah.
rich history. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm
But-
guessing that a lot of people just don't trust each other. It's like an inherited thing, or you just right? Do they all like seem like, you know, kind of sort of looking over your shoulder all the time, sort of protecting yourself?
No, in that way we are very liberal. You know, we're very comfortable.
Okay.
We trust each other very readily. You know, like
Right.
to make a comparison, if any of us would just in the blink of an eye be dropped into, I don't know, Times Square or something, we would actually go through a deep, profound culture shock because, you know, people don't care about each other. You know, like maybe in Dublin, the capital of our country, the city itself, it's not only overpopulated, but it's overpopulated with non-Irish. And you know, I'm not a racist or anything. I have to put that footnote in there, but to have a wide variety of cultural groups in one place, you know, it's just atomization completely. But at the same time, you can still talk to a lot of people in Dublin and be open. You know, it's a very ambiguous affair here in Ireland. You know,
Right.
we're an island. Like historically, islands they're more laid back. You know, they're more safer
Right.
because criminals can't travel to and fro so easily. You know, so
That's
we're
true.
closer.
True.
Yeah, it's closer in. Yeah, for sure. Are you guys under British? Like, do you have crown land there, or is it separate from? You guys won the war away from that, or what?
That is surprisingly a common question. It's surprising to me in that, and it's surprising to other Irish in that, like, well, maybe you guys should know this already, but we have won our independence. That
Right.
was the 1916 uprising. We
Right.
did manage to upset the system so much that 3 years later, we did win our independence. But
With the Free State you were talking about earlier, right?
yeah, there you go. But it's really debatable as to whether we have our independence.
Well, I might point out the fact that they tell us in school that we won independence from England here,
Yeah.
and the Queen is still in control, just under the table.
Yeah,
we
proxy.
Yeah,
we
proxy.
win anything really. It was
No.
all another psyop.
Yeah, it was an
Mhm.
agreement. It was a business decision.
I mean, the guys,
That's what it was.
the founding fathers were working with King George.
Yeah.
All the while they were pretending to be, you know, this big revolutionary bunch.
Right. We're just a cash cow for the central banks, all these countries, all of us.
Yeah.
Ireland, Canada, US, frickin' now Ukraine, right?
Mm.
They've got us and
Yep.
them in there now too. So
Yeah.
and all the other countries they've torn apart in the last 100 years. Right?
Well, see,
Put us all
that's
under the
what
central bank.
that's what
Right.
modern history is. I mean, you know, if you take the long view, as you know, I know you guys are familiar with, you know, that we have been manipulated for a long time. These guys know us in and out. You know, they know how we work. So, what is so far-fetched about the idea that, oh, we'll pretend to have a revolution for them? We'll pretend their revolution and we'll give them pretend independence, and maybe to a degree there will be independence, but then, you know, we'll sneak it in under the bottom of the door kind of thing, like the Civil War. As far as I'm concerned, was just British control reasserting itself in America. Common law reasserting itself, and now they want to pose it. It's the sickest fucking thing. I'm sorry I've cursed so much on your podcast.
Oh,
It's okay. There's a lot of cursing going on around here.
yeah, we do that all the time. No
Okay,
problem.
so I can freely express myself here. I find it a fucking shame that the Confederacy has been tarred with this brush. Guys, look up a book called The Real Abraham Lincoln. Read that shit.
Oh yeah, he was a scumbag.
He only wanted to turn America into a corporation, and guess what? He won. The Civil War wasn't about slaves. It was about independence. It just happened that at the time it was economically more efficient for the South to own slaves. But you know, you all your fucking heroes behind
Howard.
Sorry.
If you remember, guys, the States was first called the Virginia Company back in 1606. Okay, and that's how this colony was formed. It was a company.
Yeah.
So that's your roots right there.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and now you know they have.
No, they just said, look, we're going to expand over there. We're going to exploit all the resources. Look at all the fresh water, everything they got, right? We're going to build this thing up, make it one of the superpower, make it the biggest superpower on the planet. Use everybody, usurp everybody, take all their money, and then pull the rug out from everyone.
Yep.
Some other country in the world, which will be the new Jerusalem in Israel. Right? That'll be the capital of the world if they get their way.
Yep.
When the Maitreya comes.
If they get their way. Right? That's the third temple. That's when the shit hits the fan.
They're not going to, because we are going to stop consenting to anything they do and go our own way.
Yeah.
It's happening. There are signs of it happening for sure.
Oh yeah, Trump's even said they want to make Jerusalem the new capital.
Yep.
So he's giving you the writing on. He's spelling out the writing on the wall for their plan, right?
Mm.
Because I don't know if you're too aware, Howard, of what's really going on in the Middle East, but it's basically just, you know, of course there's the oil and all that, right? They want all of it, of course, but they've already got deals with these countries where they're ripping them off anyway. They're making tons of money anyway, right? But they want this land. They want the Greater Israel Project is underway.
Yep.
It's the project for a new American century, which was written out by Wolfowitz and all these other Zionists, dual citizens, right? Dual Israeli citizens, right? And it's all already been planned. That's why they did 9/11. That's the main reason they did 9/11, was to go and tear apart these countries. They needed a reason, and they needed the people to go along with it. And they're not going to go along with it just into going along with it. And that's why they did it. Right? Plus, they
need a pariah.
They covered up their scams too. Everything was destroyed, right?
Yep.
They used that as a burning pit for all their scams, because they were going to get audited. All these big companies, Kroll and all the big ones.
Yeah.
What's the name of that documentary from Corbett Report? 9/11 Trillions is it called? That's a good one that people need to look into.
I can watch that one. Yeah. 9/11 Trillions. That's what it's called.
Yeah. It specifically deals with how they managed to hide all of that money, all of that fraud, just by destroying the buildings.
Well, Enron.
Yeah, exactly.
Enron was in that big investigation, and then suddenly the building all of the paperwork was in blew up. Building 7.
Not even mentioning the 2.3 trillion that was missing from the Pentagon the day before.
Right.
But yeah, that's the whole plan, though, Howard. I don't know how up you are on all of that. For the plan
For the
for
last
the Middle East.
16 years, this has been my whole life.
Yeah.
Well, 14 years, but yeah.
Because you can basically see it happening. Why hasn't ISIS attacked Israel yet? Oh, wait. They are ISIS, right?
That's the question.
Well,
yeah.
and they did attack. Israel with that one stupid psyop.
Oh, yeah,
That
you're
looks
right. They
so-
did one
that's so
stupid thing.
so fake. So
So
fake.
fake. Just like the beheadings and all. Oh,
Yes.
ridiculous. I mean, like you said earlier, Howard, I don't know why I think they love to mock us for sure. They want to shove it in our face that we can't see. It's right hidden in plain sight, right?
Yep.
And they want to sit there and laugh at us because they get off on that, right? That gives them more power.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yep.
We're actually that stupid that we just,
Well, an interesting point that you brought up about Sandy Hook is relieving karma. I don't know if you use the word karma, but basically the guilt of having done what they
guilt,
did,
yeah.
and that's how they. Yeah, it really is a magical.
It is magic.
Thing that you need to let people know what you're doing, or you're absolutely responsible for what's going on.
You're lying to them, and you're being deceitful, right? So they in their minds, in their, what is it called, ideology, or in their code of ethics, I guess you might say. Yeah, they have to do that so that it's justified onto the creator that it's not deceitful.
Yeah.
In some way. Maybe not, in that sense, but just so that they can relieve their own karma.
Well, I practice the same. I practice the same personally. It might come off as me being evil or something, but if in my personal life, if someone offends me in that they need to be harshly dealt with, I need to make sure that, are they aware of what they're doing? Are they aware that they deserve to as a subtle one, get punched in the face? Then I'll punch them in the face, and I think, okay, well, they asked for it, And
right.
that is the mentality of these people, is that, well, these are a bunch of ignorant assholes. They asked to be manipulated and herded like cattle.
Yeah, they let us.
Yeah.
They go along with what they consent to everything, so it's not our fault.
Well,
it's plausible deniability.
The thing is, they've got implied consent. If they tell us, no matter how obscure and esoteric it might be, they figure that silence is consent.
Yes.
And they will say, well, they didn't say no, so let's do it.
Isn't that called silent acquiescence?
We're absolved.
Isn't that called silent acquiescence?
Well, it's implied consent. In other words,
well, silent acquiescence means that there is consciousness on the part of the person that something's being done to.
Yes.
While implied consent means that it's just a subjective reading that the actor.
Yeah,
making.
You can say, well, they didn't say no, so I guess that means yes.
But like at the root of it, right? It metaphysically speaking, like really at the nuts and bolts level, they're right. They are actually right. That metaphysically, they do.
Oh yeah, I agree.
The day, because we are all animals. We are supposed to fight. We're supposed to fight for our existence. We're supposed to struggle.
Are we? Are we really?
Well, I mean,
what evidence can you give?
I don't think we're animals, though. I really don't. We may have animal aspects, but we are a higher consciousness.
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, we can.
And that takes us out of the animal realm and into the sentient, sapient area, which you can't say of animals.
Yeah, but when I watch a porno or something, I mean, I see the animal in us. Okay?
I guess.
Well, that's the thing. Look, guys, we're the bridge between animal and God. Like, we are the bridge. We are on the bridge, as in we have these two things to contend with. And I think maybe, Ian, that's where you got the impression that I said that we have a light side and a dark side. I really don't see them as light and dark. I just see them, you know, we are in a transit, evolutionarily speaking, you know, physically and spiritually. So give me a second for my thoughts to come back to me.
I know we're getting pretty deep here, folks. Hopefully you haven't. Everybody's like,
Well, like, look,
run
you know,
off.
well, like, look, yeah, we just have to deal with the fact that we're in the middle of this process, and a part of the process is that some of us are farther along than others in that, you know, coming to terms with the fact that we are all one.
yeah.
That like some of us choose to inflict harm on others for no good reason.
Yeah.
And we need to fight against those. We still are in that animal element, in that we need to still fight for our existence. It's not ideal. It's not the way we would like the world to be. But that's the beauty of it, in that we need to live for the world as we want it to be.
I'm thinking that the only reason that we have to fight is because they have ensured that the world required. I mean, accounting for our making it competition for that dollar, that euro unit of energy accounting you want to mention. You know, we have to compete. We can't cooperate, or we will not get those nifty little tokens.
Yeah. But that kind of goes along with what I'm saying. Like, it's all kind of built on fear, because greed is one thing, right? And that's a real evil that's really plagued us, right?
Well,
greed. I mean,
well, greed is only a function of scarcity. You cannot define greed when everyone may have all that they want.
Okay. Now, scarcity is a fear. The fear of scarcity, or the fear of
there is
poor,
a fear of
scarcity. Fear of,
yes.
You know, and you want to, like, especially if you were born into a rich family, right, where your dad is a successful businessman, right, and you're born as a son, and it's like almost a given that you'll probably continue his business or something, or he'll at least want you to special, be the same, and you yourself will want to live up to your father's expectations as well, right?
Right.
You'll end up like stepping on someone else to get ahead or something. If you're say you're a total screw up, and you screw up everything you do, and your dad's flawless, right? You're gonna step over, you're gonna cheat to get yourself ahead, right? But you're actually cheating yourself, because, you know, it's kind of counterfeit that way. But that's just a simple an example, right, of how fear can control your whole way of life.
Well, I'm not saying that fear isn't a motivator, but I'm just saying that not everything we do is motivated by fear.
No,
a lot of things we do are motivated by compassion.
Right.
Those of us who are not psychopaths, you know, I'm just saying, which is, you know, the largest percentage of humanity. You know, at least 99% of us are not primary psychopaths, and about 90% of us aren't even secondary psychopaths. But unfortunately, that roughly 10% of us are the ones that are in control, with the ones at the top being in that 1%.
Right. So, Howard, we know there's all these things. We know we have the capability as people to overcome these endeavors. Where do you think we go now? Like, I mean, YouTube's censoring everybody. It's being harder to get your voice out there. I went through my subs list, you guys, the other day to just, and I swear, Amy, like I had over 300. I was subbed to over 300. And I would say I had to get rid of at least 150 who had got their channels removed.
Yeah, I've been. I don't know how many I've had to get rid of because I kind of been taking them as they come. But yeah, a lot of people. However, most of them I have found their backup channels or their next channels or their, you know, this is my latest channel, and
I was just blown away by the amount of channels I had to delete out of there that had been removed. Right. All for the same simple reasons: violated community guidelines, contained graphic content.
And a lot of them are not even really that. I mean, you know, our discussion with Sidethorn wasn't harassing and bullying anybody, and yet I got a strike for that.
Yeah.
Those are the reasons that channels are being taken down. You know, that there is a pandemic. What are the alt-right calling it? It was some clever word of the shuttening. Yeah, that's what they called it. Since Charlottesville, you know, because I keep tabs on the alt-right, they have a cute word for it: shuttening. The shuttening, as in things are being shut down. So there is a shuttening in the last few years. Yeah. Go on, Ian, please.
Well, they're also changing street names because of that and everything else.
Oh, it's just so much BS.
No, but where do you think we go from here, Howard? What do you think? You know, like it's like I always put this analogy to people. It's like we're trying to empty the Pacific Ocean with a tablespoon.
Or a fork.
Or that's even worse.
A fork.
Yeah, that's impossible. That's impossible.
Well, it's not impossible, but oh my gosh.
It just may take a few billion years is all.
Yes. You know,
where do you think we go from here, Howard? Where do you want this to go? Where do you think we go?
Okay, so yeah, I have noticed this trend, and personally, I know this might sound a bit weird, but I can't wait, man. I wish they would just pull down the shutters all in one go, but they're not going to do that. They're going to be really, really sneaky about it. Like you said, a few channels here, a few channels there. It happened already 5 years ago. You know, it started happening back then. It's just the smaller channels. They're just working up the food chain now.
Yep.
And I really wish that they would actually just put their cards on the table and say, look, you guys just can't talk about anything at all. And to be honest, you know, well, I mean, to be upfront, direct, YouTube have already said that in their community guidelines. Sorry, I'm burping a lot from beer. Basically, anything that offends anyone in any way, that, you know, talking about current events, talking about politics or race, literally. I don't know, was it like 2 or 3 months ago they came out with this new community guidelines write-up that basically outlawed anything. Personally, today,
except
I haven't noticed. Well, that's it, you know. Like, for the last year now, I have not really used YouTube, so I haven't really noticed what you guys have noticed.
It's called the purge. I call it the purge.
There you go. Yeah, I haven't noticed that because in the last year or so, I have only used YouTube really for, you know, the Nostalgia Critic, ETC show, you know, for plain old entertainment. Also for, you know,
new uploads. People upload the latest episode of Rick and Morty. That's pretty handy. I have given up hope that YouTube is a realm where we can transmit information. The golden age has ended as far as I'm concerned, and we were all Neo, okay? We watched the 1999 movie The Matrix, and we were blown away by it.
Yep.
We took away what we took away from it, but the fact is that we had access to the Matrix. We could learn Kung Fu and Taekwondo and learn to speak Mandarin. We could learn all of these things. And now the time is gone. It's over now. It really is truly over. And
well, it's certainly in its dying, I think.
Yeah, we're in the last days, really.
Yeah, I do.
Because it give it another year or two, and absolutely everything will be offensive. We have net neutrality being seriously undermined now, where basically, if people out there aren't familiar with that struggle, most people aren't, but there has been a consistent campaign to defend it. The idea that every piece of information on the internet gets a fair and equal amount of bandwidth, that is severely under attack.
Yes, yes.
Sure. And they also funnel your searches too.
You know, I want to mention my latest vid that I did. It's called "Who's Responsible?" and it talks about a trend that I have seen where they have been trying to make us responsible for how everyone else chooses to feel about anything we have said. In other words, if I said to you, "You're ugly," you choose how you feel about that by how you choose, what you choose to think about, and how you think about what you choose to think about. And I'll just leave it at that. Anyone who wants to search my channel for "Who's Responsible," it should be right up near the top. Check it out and see what I have to say about that absurdity that I'm responsible for how anybody else chooses to feel about what I say.
In terms of free speech and what people are saying online and in the world, that is a serious problem where how you perceive what a piece of information has an effect on you, then you should be able to report it to the authorities and have it removed, because it hurts your feels.
I'm offended. You choose to be offended,
Well, like, the thing is that if you look at the there's a phenomenon online, particularly on YouTube, and I think it's the whole part of the psyop of YouTube. I really doubt the authenticity of most of these people. They get online and make videos, and they have like a guy in armor, medieval armor, or a bear that they, the intellectual property of which they stole, to represent themselves, and they make snarky comments about, these feminists or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, it's a tired old fucking game. But yeah, it's been done to hell. And
well, it's not called the United States of Emotion.
Well, there you go.
The United States.
Well, everything is being based on emotions now. They're creating new laws based on emotions. They're creating all this stuff.
But my point is, though, that
Yeah.
Most people don't actually want this.
No.
It's a very small amount of people.
and then the governments and corporations step in to say, oh, we've got to appease this mass of people who are upset about this thing.
They are creating the illusion that there are all these people upset. So, that's the problem.
Right.
And then they manage the reaction. Oh my goodness, look, we look at all these people that are upset. We've got to do something about it. And then they roll out their
solution.
Freedom reducing solution.
More responsible for this situation.
And we lose more liberties along the way.
Absolutely. And more responsible for this situation that we're in than the feminists and the SJWs and whatever are the fucking skeptic community who made video upon video pointing out the fucking obvious.
Like BuzzFeed and all that crap, yeah.
Oh my God. BuzzFeed came out with 25 questions for men, and everyone and their dog made a fucking YouTube video out of it. And I was thinking, hang on a minute. This is fucking retarded.
Yes.
This has to be a psyop.
Yeah.
And
well, what we see on TV is mostly staged. George Soros funded groups and everything. It's all.
I'm going to say everything we see on TV is staged. Everything, because if one piece gets on there that they can't control the narrative of, they don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And really, if I may finish my thought here, so I don't sound like a ranting maniac with no trajectory. What I'm trying to get at here is that, the internet has been used to drum up hysterias that have nothing to do with anything. Nobody cares until these assholes came along and made YouTube videos about it. And now, to be honest, to be perfectly honest, I would be happy if the internet disappeared tomorrow. Because, there are millions of people out there who are much smarter and much more in tune with what the world is actually about now that they've had about, say, 20 years of the internet.
Yeah.
And maybe, okay, if the internet was a medicine, and you don't take medicine forever. You just take medicine until you're well. And we have to remember that the internet had an agenda behind it. They weren't ready for the amount of people that would come out and use it for the way we're using it tonight. And now they're starting to, close in the boundaries. They're starting to lock us out and fully implement their agenda. Well, maybe it's about time that we just put the internet to rest, and the mass of people might one day just turn around and say, hey, I can't actually express myself in this, so why am I bothering with it?
Well, there is that, but the problem that I see is that if we shut down the interweb, my ideas aren't going anywhere.
Well, what's to say that your ideas are dependent upon being communicated? Aren't these fundamentally true ideas that people know in their hearts?
Well, yes and no. If they know these truths in their hearts, as far as the laws and all of that, that's one thing. But do they know in their hearts that they can withdraw consent from all that crap that we've been beset with? Most people don't. They are indoctrinated from birth into this system and see it as the be-all and end-all, and do not understand that there is a problem with it and it needs to be dealt with. And if that information does not spread, we're going to be in this system forever. I'm just saying.
Okay. I'm taking on board what you said. Absolutely. I'm just going to suggest a small reframe, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, consider 9/11. Consider
the idea that we have been here for millions of years, replaying this whole trajectory of reaching an enlightened state, being torn down by what many argue are traumatic events. Just, to name one name, Michael Tsarian, he collates a lot of scientific data to point out that we have been recently traumatized, focusing on the Atlantis question.
Right.
Now, 9/11 has been a traumatic event, like that we cannot even comprehend what people were thinking before 9/11. Now, I want to point your attention to the Battle of Seattle, which was just going on 2 years before 9/11. Or was it 3 years? I can't quite see. I can't get my chronology right.
Well, that's all right. In that realm, okay.
Yeah. We had Americans out on the streets saying, no, this bullshit will not stand anymore. They may not have had their knowledge all together. They may not have had the amount of knowledge that we had today in our internet age, but
right.
They were out to take down the system.
My question is, were they, or was that also another staged event? We don't really know, I think.
I personally think that there were a lot of operations in place during the 90s, from the 60s onwards up into the 90s. And what was going on was trying to manage a crisis situation from their standpoint, a crisis situation with patchwork. Introduce this drug here, introduce that music movement there, introduce that philosophy here.
Right. Right.
But we were still sliding through. What came together to build the Battle of Seattle and the social movement around the world was a mishmash of those the various psychological operations that happened there. But at the core, there were a lot of people who were upset with the IMF, the New World Order in general.
Oh yeah.
And they were ready to cause chaos. And whether you like that chaos as it was happening or what would come immediately afterwards, it doesn't matter. It matters that we were leaking out of the cracks of their reservoir.
Right. Well, it's sort of like the 60s, the flower children and all of that. They decided that was getting out of hand, and that's why they did the psyop of the Manson murders.
Mm.
Well, I always thought that Vietnam created the drug culture in the States because they all of a sudden controlled all the drugs that were
kind of.
They wanted everybody sitting on the grass with flowers in their hair, so they weren't thinking about doing anything.
Well, not exactly, because what they really
anti-war, right?
Yeah, but they were also, tuning out and doing nothing and not adding their energy to their profit. So they decided that was just getting out of hand. They needed to pull them back into the system to get their energy, making them money.
I would argue that it wasn't the dropping out that was the problem, but it was the tuning in.
Yes. Yeah, well, I think it's kind of
thing. You can drop out and become useless. It's okay because, eventually, what will happen? You're gonna have to get a job eventually. You can't just sit around and do nothing.
what these kids were starting to do was form little societies, amongst themselves.
Right.
And that is what's always threatening the United States. You guys don't know what kind of situation you guys are in, because in a small country like Ireland, a little island, that's not possible. Not really.
Right.
It's not possible in the mainland in Europe for various reasons, but it's definitely possible in America, where a small group of people can go off and make a life of their own. It's still the Wild West in many respects. But yeah, the Manson murders were a part of it. There are a variety of things that came in to stop that. There was the movement. I think it was called Move. It was a bunch of African Americans who decided to go off on their own, start their own society, and they did.
Yeah.
They absolutely did. But do you know what? The U.S. government bombed them.
I would
They
not be
literally
surprised.
Bombed.
Put on
a
your shock
village of
face.
people.
Well, I really don't. I really want to keep going here, but we're past our 3 hours, and
Oh,
Yeah, we're into overtime already.
yeah, we're in overtime already, which it's fortunate we don't have any bosses telling us we got to get off.
Yeah. We
But,
will be off
yeah,
already.
Just wanted to take Go ahead, Amy.
maybe we could do another one of these real soon now, and talk about the universe.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back for more. It's been a really, really great conversation. I just wanted to give the show. Oh, sorry, Howard.
No, I'm glad it could be part of
Give
it.
a shout out to everybody in the chat. Thanks for being here again, Wilson. Nice to have you here this time. I haven't seen you, I think, before, have we? Allison Twiss O'Neill, thanks for being here. Of course, Blue Blood, my bro. Thanks for being here again. I got Lady Zaga. So thanks, Lady Zaga. I've got Wade 57, Chirpy Chimes. He's always got lots to say. That was great. We got who else was in here tonight? Wilson was somebody new. I think. Do you know him or Howard?
No.
No. Okay. I think he was following you. Broadsword, thanks for being here.
Had Wade 57. Did you say him?
Yeah, Wade 57 made a short appearance in there. Oh, he was still there later. Yeah. Big P 1599. Thanks again for being around.
David McClinton.
Yeah, he was a very
Broadsword.
very chatty tonight. Thanks. Illusion Shattered, of course. Once again, thanks for being here. It's one of our men. Charlotte, who's Charlotte here? Good evening. Thanks, everybody. I think I went through everybody here.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered everyone.
At least the
Howard
vocal ones, anyway.
Yeah, at least the vocal ones. There's always other people that watch it later and during the weekend and stuff. So.
Yep.
Can I make a snap statement before?
Yeah, go for it, Howard. Any last words? I was going to tell you any last words before we.
All right. Okay. Well, I can tell you with the gravity of the times that I've spent on this planet, and the things that I've been through. I've fought against war. I've fought against the New World Order. I've been there, done that, and I've suffered all the miseries that any human suffers, and I've realized that really, honestly, as much as it might at first glance sound like bullshit, power lies within you to recreate not only your life but the lives of those around you, and that's what matters to us most, I think, is the lives of those around us. I think that's who we really truly love beyond ourselves, I think, and
that's right.
the people around us, they depend on us to be who we are, fully, authentically us. And it's really confusing at most times at how to even begin there. And maybe, well, absolutely, definitely, in most cases, the best solution to anything is the most simple. So I have a very simple instruction to anyone who will consider embarking on this path. Look into your history, not too hard, but look into your history, you know, find out, you know, where do you come from? Ireland, maybe, you know, because, you know, if you do, then, you know, pray to the Dagda, you know, the God, the all-loving God, the all-God.
What do you do if you are a European mutt with some Native American thrown in and who knows what else?
Well, whatever you feel the strongest connection to, that's all that matters is
consciousness. I feel strong connection to consciousness.
Well, if that's your thing, then, you know, what you do is you gotta go out, well, actually, for tonight, for a provision of tonight, if you don't have, by chance, a spare notebook, blank, if possible, on hand, and a pen, put it next to your bedside locker. Pray to the God of your choice, to the universe, whatever. Have I lost you?
No, I'm still here listening.
Okay.
Yeah, we're listening. We're hanging on every word.
Okay, something just flashed in front of my. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I know what's going on. Sorry. Yeah. Send an honest prayer in the form of conversation. Ask to be surprised by this God or this force. Ask for a surprise. That is the most amazing thing that you could ever ask for, is a surprise. Go to sleep. If you have any dreams or anything, write them down. Go outside, you know, buy yourself a notebook and a pen. Both things specifically for this purpose, to write down dreams. No matter what they are, no matter how absurd they are, every detail, you write that down. Every day you will have an intense, a more intense dreaming experience. It will actually get to the point where you might not even be able to tell waking life from dreaming life. I guarantee that you will experience something.
Well,
and that is at the root of your personal power.
I'm going to tell you something. My biggest problem here, I tried to do that. I sat with my little book beside my bed for a month. And because I never remember any dreams and don't even remember dreaming, every morning I'd get up and totally forget about it. And then the few mornings I remembered it, I'd sit there going, I have no clue. I've got nothing to write down. For a whole month, I finally went, well, this isn't working for me. So I don't know what I'm going to do. But for those who remember their dreams, I think that's awesome advice.
Yeah.
Well, Emma, I must say, maybe it isn't something that isn't within your waking consciousness quite enough. But
it used to be.
Strange things do happen. Strange things do happen, and it might actually happen tonight.
Yeah.
I will hope so.
Well, all you can do is plant seeds around you and hope the flowers grow. That's all you can do. Right?
Yep.
That's why we're here. We're just spreading our thoughts and ideas, ideologies, trying to come up with solutions. That's why we love the chat interaction as well, because everybody's got great ideas and comments. It's great.
Yep.
It's been a great time talking to you tonight, Howard. Really nice to meet you.
Absolutely.
Amy, as
It's been
usual,
an honor.
good times as always.
Yes, indeed, Ian.
We'd love to have you back again, Howard, so we'll keep in touch. Are you on Skype at all? You got a connection there? Or?
Yeah. Well, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, it's ev.radio on Skype.
Okay, we'll hang out in the chat after we're done the broadcast, and we'll
Absolutely.
exchange Skype addies, and we can communicate that way for sure.
Yeah.
Once again, conspiracy not here we come. Anybody else got anything final to say?
Mute the mics.
Mute your mic. All right, guys. Until next time. Oh, I just wanted to say, miss you, Aaron. Love you, buddy. Hope you're having a great trip out there. Hope your campsite's beautiful, and
Absolutely.
hope you're nice and safe on your journeys. Hopefully, maybe next week you'll be able to join in on the chat, and good times. Until next time, guys.